All right. I think we have most of our group here at this point. All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you, and welcome. Glad you're here today. Glad to have you here. My name is Mike Fitch. I'm a program manager with LTAP, the Local Technical Assistance Program, and I want to welcome everybody to the Funding and Resources Workshop. We have a great program for you today with 11 speakers scheduled, so I'll keep these opening remarks fairly brief. This workshop is scheduled to run from 9 a.m. to about 2:15 this afternoon. We'll take a 1-hour lunch break at around 11:20, and we'll also have a break during the morning as well. Now, if you're new to this building, the cafeteria is directly down the hall, and restrooms are also down the hall and to the left before the cafeteria. Hopefully everybody picked up a course book and packet on their way in, but if not, there's still copies on the table there. And we think this course book is going to be a great resource for you. You'll see that it follows the presentation 2 slides per page. And I also want to mention that the very last page of your course book is the workshop evaluation form. So you don't have to worry about that this morning, but this afternoon, when we get to the end of the workshop, we'll just ask you to tear out the evaluation form from the course book, fill that out for us, and you can leave it on any of the tables at the back of the room. And we'll have your attendance certificates at that time as well. We would ask you to switch your phones to silent mode if you could, please. We appreciate that. But we keep these workshops pretty informal throughout the day, so if you need to step out for a moment at any time, that's fine. Please feel free to do so. Questions. We encourage questions and discussions at the end of each presentation, and we've learned from previous workshops with this many speakers, it's best to do the questions at the end of each segment. So we have about 20 minutes for each speaker today, and roughly the first 15 minutes will be their presentation, and then we'll have a few minutes for questions and answers. We are recording this workshop today, so what we'd like to do is use the portable microphones for audience questions, and we have a few members of our LTAP team who are here who will run around with the microphones. There's Raymond, if nobody has met Ray before, and here's Jerry also. And that way we can pick up questions through the PA system and get those part of the recording as well. One final comment before we proceed. There is an excellent program resource guide that's available through the ODOT website. So I encourage everybody to check that out online after the workshop. But we also have a printed copy of the pocket guide version of the resource guide. And those copies were on the back table. Oh, they're now on the table over here. Okay? So please feel free to pick those up today. It's an excellent guide, and many of today's presentations will refer to the programs in the resource guide. With that, I'm very pleased to introduce our first speaker for today. Mr. Neil Tunison is the Warren County engineer in Southwest Ohio, and he's going to tell us a little bit about use of funding programs for local roadway improvements at the county level. So, Neil?
Thank you. Warren County is a really fast-growing county, and we've grown in population in the past 30 years over 100%. And the area that we are going to be talking about is an area that's really grown a lot. It's gone from a population of around 9,000 to close to 25 in the 2000 census to about 25,000 now. But it's a very it's a story of opportunity, but there's also a cautionary aspect of this that I'll be talking about. So if you bear with me, it is a great story. We were approached by Victoria Beale back in 2009, 2010 about doing a rural road safety audit through their high-risk rural road safety program. And we had 5 roads that were in the top 50 high crash areas in the state. And we were pretty interested in following through on this, and it required setting up a rural safety audit committee, and and it was made up of people in the safety, our fire chiefs and sheriff's department, and we even had private sector representatives, and we met with ODOT, a team of ODOT and county highway, or our engineer's office staff. We would visit these different areas and come up with a list of all the different things that need to be done to address some of these some of these crash issues. And these included signage, reflectors, striping, high friction surface, and guardrail. And we got through this program, this high-risk rural road safety program. We got the signs, the reflectors. We did some of the striping. We did something called optical barrier, which was lines spaced every maybe 20 feet for a 2-foot wide. I don't have a picture, but every 2 foot wide, and that were kind of geared to the motorists to, as you got closer to the actual curve, these bars got closer together, and it was to really send a signal to the driver's brain that maybe I should be slowing down. And we had a high friction. We had an area where we had cars going off the curve that we put down it's a very expensive treatment using bauxite and flint chips to create a high friction area and keep the cars on the road. And that turned out to be actually a pretty effective thing, and we were able to get the striping and the high friction at 90% federal cost. The roads that were identified in this program were on Foster's Mainville Road and Stubbs Mill Road, which were in this township that I mentioned that was very high, fast-growing. Hendrickson Road and Wilmington Road, which was another becoming urbanized area, and Millboro Road, which is a very rural area. And so we decided that we would do an intersection improvement at Foster's Mainville Road and Butterworth. Now, this was an intersection that we had decided back in the mid-2000s that we wanted to improve. We had a sight distance problem at the intersection. We had a moderate crash. It wasn't too bad in the early part of the 2000s, but we started to see crashes nearby, and we thought this was probably an area that we should address. And it turned out that Foster's Mainville Road itself was probably the #1 road for safety issues in the state in one particular year. I think it was 2006, 2007 in that area. It had the highest crash rate of any road in Ohio. And so we had already come up with plans to do this intersection before we did this safety audit. We were planning on using OPWC funds, and we decided at that time we actually had a higher crash problem on Mason Montgomery Road and Fields Erdel in the I-71 interchange area. So we had ended up taking the money from that particular project and then putting it to this Mason Montgomery Road project. And so we didn't have any funds for it. And it turned out after doing that the scoring for our OPWC project at our district level really wasn't going to get the job done. It's in a time, as I say, timing is everything. 1 year it worked, but the next couple of years, it didn't look like it was going to get funded. So we were open to a new source of funding. So we worked out through Victoria, through and Michelle May and Andrea Stevenson, using 50% funding, safety funding for the project. Well, that still wasn't enough, so we went to our county surface transportation program, and was able to get a 40% CEAO HSIP, a Highway Safety Improvement Program funding. So we now had 90%. So now it all started to make sense. We had a 10% local match. So this is basically what it looked like. This area that you see is actually the area where we had used the high friction surface course, and that was at the top of the hill. As you get down about 1,000 feet further was the intersection that we're looking at. But this is what it looked like before. It's a very wooded area, very curvy road. This is in the area of the Little Miami State National Scenic River area, and so now this is going to play an important part in the cautionary tale that I'm going to be talking about. This is actually Hendrickson Road, and this was another one of our roads. And you can see we improved the signage, and we also got some striping money to put into that. Now, the signage is an interesting part of this particular funding program, which the high-risk rural road has been really modified into another program. But one of the nice features of the signage was that they provided us with the signs, and our highway department put them up. When we got these signs, they look like interstate, type signs. I'm thinking, there's just no way this is going to work. I mean, a lot of people don't like to have signs in their front yard anyway, but to have these really large signs is really going to could be a problem. Well, we went ahead and did it. And particularly on Stubbs Mill Road, we had paved the road the same year that we put these signs up, and we'd been putting off resurfacing this particular road for years, and finally we got to it, and just dozens of complaints about the surface course, and we put the signs up, and we never got one compliment on the resurfacing, but we got dozens of compliments about the signage, that it was so much easier to read, and so I was proven wrong as usual. But again, this is another sign upgrade, and this really was a good thing. And we also upgraded signs on Wilmington Road. And I don't see this is actually an area that we put the optical speed bars, but we they would have been basically a 2-3-foot wide strip, and they would be placed, every mathematical formula for determining the spacing of these bars, and Mead and Hunt was the consultant on that particular project, and they provided us with the plans. Middleborough Road and the signage that we put there. You can see it's really vastly improved. Now, let me back up to Foster Mainville. Now, this is the area that we had planned to do the intersection improvement project. And we had, as I said, we had it designed by a consultant not planning on using any federal funds. But it was in an area where we had gone through a major investment study back in the early 2000s, where we were actually trying to get a new road that would bypass this particular road. Well, you would have thought we were going to cross the Little Miami River with this road, and you would have thought that we were murdering everyone's firstborn with this particular project. So we knew that going into just a simple improvement project that we would get a lot of pushback. But we had decided that we needed to improve the sight distance, that we needed to go into the hillside with our widening, with our turn lane. We wanted to put a turn lane because it was a T intersection, but it wasn't traffic coming out getting T-bone that was the problem. It was actually rear-end accidents. There was a very limited sight distance coming in the opposite direction, and they weren't, getting cited for not having assured, clear distance. So we thought, well, we need a turn lane to go into this side road, and so we were going to push all the improvements to the inside. And as you can imagine, we did get pushback, and we decided that rather than have this become a real issue with bringing this before the commissioners, because we would have to acquire right-of-way, we decided to push it to the outside, which got us into a stream. And we used drilled pier walls to do the project, and we used the estimate that we had for the OPWC application. It was a $715,000 application, and we ended up having to do some extra engineering. We had to contract to get our environmental document, which turned out to be a significant amount because we were working in this Little Miami watershed. And what we had thought would be about an $850,000 project ended up being close to $1 million. We were able to get the 90% for the $715,000 portion, but we ended up having to mitigate what we thought was going to be a ditch, and we were told that it was an ephemeral stream. It drained about 4 acres of land. It was a subdivision, and buffered by a forested area, like typically of what you see in the photo. And we bid the project, this is where working with your district is very important. The district took the plan. We said, we've got plans for this project when we first started this whole discussion. They looked at the plans. Jay Hamilton was our traffic safety engineer, and he looked at the plans and he said, yeah, I think we can make this work. We just have to add a 2-foot shoulder, paved shoulder. We had 11-foot lanes, but we can add a 2-foot shoulder. We can minimize the impact, the footprint of this project. And but never did we dream that we would have to mitigate almost 800 feet of we figured we'd have to do around 300 feet, but not 800 feet. So we were one of the first jurisdictions to use the state, fee in lieu of program through the Nature Conservancy District and the Nature Conservancy group, and but we got it done. We bid the project thinking that we could get our core permit, and we started this process, the core permit, and it took a while for them to decide that we had an ephemeral stream, and Ohio EPA looked at it and said, you do. And we went ahead and bid the project, and we had the contractor hold off until we got the 401, the water quality certification, and that took about a year. But we were fortunate to have a great contractor. We had this is one of the projects where you're fortunate to have a good consultant, a good contractor, and a great funding partner with ODOT to make this all happen, and our County Engineers Association. So it can be done. It gives great results. We have a lot of compliments about how this project turned out. So I will take any questions.
If you have a question, just raise your hand and we'll come around to you.
Any questions for Neil?
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Neil, thank you. Next, I'm pleased to bring up our administrator for the Office of Local Programs, Andrea Stevenson.
Thank you, Neil. We appreciate you driving up from the Cincinnati area this morning, and I appreciate all of you coming here today as well. We're really pleased to see so many people here who are interested in funding opportunities and looking ways to fund their transportation projects, so thank you for coming. I'm going to talk a little bit today about the importance of having a really good and solid application when you submit it to our office, or really to any other office here at ODOT, and then share a few details with you about our capital programs. And so as we were planning this day, we planned it a little bit differently this year. Typically, we've always had people come in who had funding programs, but this year we wanted to make sure we had a mix of some local project sponsors who have actually worked on projects, developed the projects, or designed the projects, and had to put the applications together for funding. I think if you have an opportunity to hear from people like Neil or Andy Stone, who's going to be coming later from the City of Athens, you can relate to what they're going through as a local and better understand some of what they have to go through. Here at ODOT, we're going to be the ones looking at your applications and either informing you of the fact, yes, you've been awarded some money, or no, please try again next year. And so we want to make sure you're ready and prepared and have good applications that can be very competitive when we're going through the application process. So I wanted to share a little bit of details with you and really put this into context about who you are and who we're trying to be advocates for when it comes to funding. Ohio is a huge state. It has a lot of different local entities, and you can see here on the list essentially what we're dealing with and how competitive it can really be. And so we have 937 cities and villages, a lot of townships that we work very closely with, and then, of course, the county engineers. These numbers here actually represent the local system. That does not include the federal aid system or any of the systems that ODOT has responsibility for. So this is what you're in charge of and what you could potentially be seeking funding for. Just a word of note, I was talking to somebody back in the back earlier, and we have a lot of projects in the state of Ohio. We have a lot of bridges, we have a lot of paving to do, and so it's very important that you be aware of what you can potentially be eligible for and go for the money. So the point of us providing funding and having our capital programs is really to improve communities. We want to make sure that you're able to have a vibrant community and improve your infrastructure. Through our LTAP program, we have training for locals, and our staff will come out to your local community and conduct training. And then we also have training in regional areas across the state through NHI courses, and we hold them here as well. There are other great resources out there that you can take advantage of metropolitan planning organizations. We have our rural transportation agencies in the rural areas. We have an Office of Jobs and Commerce, and there are a few representatives here today, and Glenda will be talking later about if you have a potential for economic development in the area, how you can potentially leverage some of those funds. Our ODOT district staff, we have 12 district LPA managers. If you don't know them, you probably should get to know them and visit with them about funding opportunities. And then we have other transportation stakeholders across the state, the CEAO, the Municipal League, the Ohio Township Association. They're all good people to get to know if you need advice or guidance. And then we have a pretty extensive website with a lot of information on it. I know that Mike talked about our resource guide. Please pick one of these up. We're going to be updating it for 2016 as well. Not a lot will change. There will be a few minor things, but the content of it is pretty much the same. And then we will actually break down a lot of these programs today. So from a statewide perspective, as a local, and this may be a little difficult to read, but you can see it in your packet, this is what we provide to locals as an agency, and it comes in a variety of forms, and you're not eligible for every single one of these categories, but it just puts it into perspective that on any given year, for example, this year, we have a total of $406 million that are going to be dedicated to transportation going to locals. So some of it goes to MPOs, which if you're in an MPO area, you should be sitting down with them and prioritizing your projects and funding potential. Other programs, the safety program, working with the county engineers, our Higher Bridge Partnership Program, Turnpike Mitigation, and Jobs and Commerce, just to name a few. So this is just a good reference for you as you may be working on an application to kind of look at what our available funding is and how we disperse that to different types of transportation. So a couple things before you get started. So for our office, we manage about 3 or 4 different capital programs, and I'm going to visit with you a little bit about those. And so I'll talk about the application time period being open, and really what we're looking for when we're reviewing applications. We want to see a solid transportation need. We want that to be very clearly demonstrated to us in writing. You know, you have a bridge or you have a resurfacing project. Tell us what the pavement condition ratings are. Tell us, you know, what the condition ratings are so that we can understand how that ranks among other projects across the state. Essentially what we do is we will go and we will take the batch of projects, compare that to the statewide data, find out where your particular project ranks, and be able to begin prioritizing that with a number of other criteria like economic health and those sorts of things, depending on the criteria. So we want to see a solid application. Make sure that if you have the opportunity to leverage dollars, and really that's what this is about today, is if you have a bridge and you can get money from us in the Muni Bridge Program, and you can obtain money from you know, other sources across the state or other state agencies, you can get creative and you can combine and leverage some of those dollars with a solid time frame and a solid project schedule, and you can get pretty close to having a project funded without having to spend a lot of money on it. Now, it takes some work and it takes some creativity in getting that put together, but you can get it done. So with that, I'm going to break down a couple of these programs for you. We have staff from our office. I know you've met a lot of the LTAP staff. Here in our office, we also we have Nicole Wade, and she oversees a couple of programs, Jeff Shaner and Jeff Pateman. So they work on the local let side with capital programs. You guys just wave your hands. So they're kind of sitting there in the middle, and you can ask them questions today, too, if you cannot find me. So the first program is a small city program. It's valued at $10 million, and it's funded with federal funds, and we primarily focus with this program on populations from 5,000 to 24,000. It's a great program. I'll go into a few more details here in the next couple slides. We have Local Major Bridge. It's about $20 million annually. This is for specific and designated bridges in the state. Over the last 5 to 10 years, we have spent an extensive amount of money working on the bridges on that list. Those bridges are typically have a square footage of 35,000 feet or greater, so they're very big bridges, and we know which bridges those are and which ones we're potentially going to fund. We used to have an application process for that now, and right now we're just kind of targeting some of those bridges or using those bridges for some larger projects across the state that are having difficulty with funding issues. The Municipal Bridge Program, we call it Muni Bridge for short, $10 million, provides federal funds to municipalities for bridge replacements and rehabs. And we solicit annually for this as well. So for those of you that are eligible in the Small City Program, we currently have 54 cities. We have a list located on our website. And if you're a small city and you know you have a need out there, you're eligible for road safety and signal projects. Very, very competitive program. We want to see a lot of applications. We want to help you, and we want to provide funding to you. So the funds are 80% federal, and typically it's been a 20% local match. The funds can be used only for construction or construction administration. Any of the preliminary engineering, environmental, or design work has to be done by the local. So when you submit your application for Small City, Muni Bridge, or TAP, you have to be able to demonstrate that you have made significant progress in getting through the PE, the right-of-way, the environmental, and the design, and that you're really close and ready to getting to go to construction. So we're going to be looking for a timeline that looks real, makes sense, and seems realistic to us in selecting those projects for that funding. The interesting thing about this, and this is where you want to put a big star in your notebook, is for the next 4 years or so, out to 2020, with Small City, Muni Bridge, and TAP, we're going to be offering toll revenue credit. So what toll revenue credit is we have benefited from some of the turnpike revenue that has been generated, and we've been able to offer a lesser local match. So instead of a 20% local match on these programs, it's going to be a 5% local match. So locals only have to come up with 5%. ODOT will provide the 15% toll revenue credit to match the 80% federal funds. So if now's the time to get on board and submit an application, it is time, because you have an opportunity to get a great project at a reduced local match rate. So please make note of that. And like I said earlier, the Small City Program is criteria-based, and we will open up the solicitation process January 1st. The application deadline is March 1st. Muni Bridge is very similar. The criteria is different because obviously we're focusing on structures. It's a $10 million program per year right now for both Small City, Muni Bridge, and TAP. We're looking at like 2018 to 2020, those time frames, depending on how many projects we've already funded. And so we will look at when you want to advance a project to construction and try to fit that into one of those fiscal years. For Muni Bridge, we have a funding limit of $2.5 million per project, so you cannot ask for any more than that. And then again, we provide 80% of the federal funds for construction, and 5% local match, 15% toll revenue credit. We always leave the 20% on here because that is always the default. That's always going to be the standard that we fall back to. It's just this temporary period where we do have toll revenue credit available that you're going to be able to take advantage of that. So we have approximately 1,300 bridges. Again, criteria-based selection process. That opens up January 1st as well, and applications are due by March 1st. A couple years ago, we actually went into a web-based application process, so you don't have to create them in a Word document anymore. You can get online. You can submit it through our application process, and it's actually pretty simple. We have all the categories that you need to fill out, and you can supply attachments or mapping or whatever you need to support the document. A couple other programs I want to share with you. We have a Metro Parks program, and that is managed by the Ohio Parks and Recreation Association. Gary Cooper's somewhere here today, and he's our project manager for that. That's $2.25 million per year. We work extensively also with the county engineers with their safety program, their bridge program, and their STP program. We'll break that down a little bit. And then our transportation alternatives program, $11 million per year in the rural areas for enhancement type projects. Metro parks, anybody here from a metro park or work closely with them? Gary, where are you? Gary was here earlier. I talked to him. It's okay. So $2.23 million, these are funds that we provide to the Park Association. They're state funds, and they're for construction and reconstruction of the items that you see here, primarily park drives, replacement roads, bridges, access roads, and parking lots. They do construct a lot of parking lots, and Gary works pretty extensively with them on an annual basis. Transportation alternatives, this is one of our big programs, $11 million. It's a statewide rural program, and so if your jurisdiction is within a metropolitan planning organization, they get an allocation from the Federal Highway Administration for the TAP program to begin with. So if you have a program or a project that is potentially eligible for TAP and you're within that metropolitan area, you need to be talking to them about prioritizing the project and getting funding from them for your project. If you're within a rural area of the state, then you're going to apply to ODOT, and we will have the resources available to fund projects. Again, this is an 80% maximum on eligible costs for construction engineering, 5% local match here for the next couple of years, 15% toll revenue credit provided by ODOT. Here are some eligibility criteria. Obviously for TAP, you have to be a local government. There has to be a public benefit. It has to be accessible to the general public, and it has to be publicly owned. A lot of times, because they are projects that may involve historic features, nonprofit organizations, we have to make sure that we're not funding something that's privately owned, but something that is publicly owned and may be maintained in a public setting. A few of the projects that can be considered for TAP: historic properties. They have to be on the National Register of Historic Places. Of course, I've talked about this, but your local match has to be identified, the 5%. You have to have a commitment to maintain the project, excuse me, after it's constructed. And so we actually go out, we conduct maintenance reviews on the TAP projects, and we will follow up and ensure that the maintenance is occurring. And then they just have to meet our eligibility criteria, and it has to be a very competitive project that demonstrates a transportation need. So these are some of the types of projects that we fund. We like to see that there is a transportation need out there and that these projects are actually going to get utilized by the communities. So again, this is a little bit different from the other two I talked about. The application for funds opens January 1st. However, on January 1st, we're going to be looking at letters of intent. And so you'll send your letters of intent to us. Actually, what we do is we review them for eligibility criteria to make sure that they are eligible for TAP. You get an invitation to apply for the funding, and then the applications are due May 1st, and we typically have a decision made by August 1st. So we work very closely with the districts, and we have a small committee of district staff that works with us in helping us select these projects. So it's never within our small group. We work, when we're looking at bridges, we have the Office of Structures review our criteria and look at our list, and when we are working on a variety of projects, we get the experts from within the department to help give us the okay that these are solid projects and there is a true need out there. Programs for county engineers. You can see here we focus specifically on funding opportunities for them. They work very closely with their constituent county engineers. We have $35 million in that range for the bridge program on an annual basis. We have $12 million for the safety program and about $12 million for the roadway program. And so they work extensively and through the County Engineers Association, who is a project manager for these funds for us. And right now they're working out on on projects that are going to be sold and constructed in 2020. This is a very competitive program. We have a lot of bridges in the state of Ohio that need replaced and reconstructed, and right now we are trying to save all of our pennies, save all the money we can to get bridges constructed and built. So very competitive program here. One of the other programs that I think is going to be a benefit for you to be aware of is our safety program. This program is administered by our Office of Systems Planning, and Michelle May is the program manager for that safety program. They have about $72 million annually that they spend on projects, and it can be spent on any roadway. So it's not designated to the National Highway System or a federal aid route. It can be on any road, any township road, any village-owned road. Any road can apply for safety funds, but you have to demonstrate that there's a need there. So typically it's going to be crash rates, those sorts of things that are going to help you obtain funding for any safety issues that you may have out there. Typically their applications are due April 30th and September 30th. Their funding is available for most phases, PE right-of-way and construction, and typical requests range from $50,000 to $5 million. That's the maximum. So there's a lot of opportunities in the safety program if you do indeed have a need for that type of funding. Some other types of, or these are some types of safety projects that may be eligible. Intersection improvements, skid-resistant resurfacing. Neil talked about that. He was able to get some of the safety funding. Andy Stone's going to talk about that today. We were able to help them leverage some safety funds with some other funding from our office. And so as you're sitting here today and listening to them talk, you can begin thinking about how you might get creative and combine some funding sources together. Other programs that you're going to hear about today, potentially some of them you won't, but they're in the resource book. Safe Routes to School, Turnpike Mitigation Program. We have an aviation program here at the department where we fund or provide funding to the general aviation airports. We have about one in each county, and they do things like runway improvements and those sorts of things. It works primarily through the FAA, not the FHWA. Bridge Partnership, Jobs and Commerce. We have some transit assistance programs that are very specific, and then our Township Sign program that Victoria will talk about later. That wraps up my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions that you may have. Oh, right here in front, Jerry. If you don't mind speaking in the microphone so it can get recorded. Thanks.
Andrea, oh, that's quite a microphone. How will the passage of the new transportation budget, new federal transportation budget, affect these numbers now or in the future?
So we're still analyzing that, and for those of you that don't know, the FAST Act was passed by Congress, and so there are some new opportunities out there for funding. We haven't specifically identified which programs we may see some increases in yet. I mean, that has to be broken down by our Division of Finance, and they're working on that. We do anticipate getting some additional funding here at the department in general.
Will there be any decreases in any of the areas?
Now, I'm obviously not a financial person. Based on what the FAST Act says, we may benefit from about $63 million more dollars, from the bill. How that will get dispersed among programs is still to be seen. I don't know if there will be a decrease. We do know that there's going to be a lot of emphasis on transit. There's going to be a lot of emphasis on freight. And so I would, in some of those areas where there's more emphasis, I think you'll see more money go there. I don't anticipate any of these programs getting less money. Small City and Muni Bridge are programs that are discretionary programs for us, so we assign that money, whereas TAP has a federal formula, and that's determined through things like the FAST Act. So we're hoping we see more money, and we think it's about $63 million. We will know more later as our finance department begins to break that down and provide information to us.
Will it be the next fiscal year if that extra $63 million, or that? When will that come about?
I think as soon, I'm not sure exactly when we become recipients of those funds. I mean, certainly by the beginning of our state fiscal year, we will probably see some of that, but obviously it's federal dollars, and so there's a federal fiscal year involved there as well. So we're just as anxious to find out when we will get more money, if we do get more money, as you are. But stay tuned on that one, and we'll have more information as it becomes available to us.
Thank you. The local toll credits, is that, are all locals eligible for that, or is it based on economic need?
It's actually based on availability in our capital programs that we talked about today. So, for example, our small city program, our Muni Bridge program, and our TAP program, we're making that toll revenue credit specific to if you are awarded money in one of those programs. So, number one, you have to submit an application, it becomes competitive, and then you get the 15% toll revenue credit. If you are a local and you're just going through our local LEP process, that money, the 15% isn't eligible for just going local LEP. You have to apply and get the money through the capital program. So it's, if you're awarded money in one of these programs, you're automatically going to get the 15%. And right now, we have designated that. We know it's going to be available through 2020. Beyond that, we'll have to see what the balance of the toll revenue credit looks like. Okay.
Hi, Andrea. The local match, can it be in-kind contribution?
No, we can only match, for example, the Ohio Public Works Commission. Is that right? Jeff, help me here for a second. For example, you cannot have force account work and use that as your local match. It has to be cash in hand. And so there are only a couple state programs that you can use as a local match, and I think it's our ODNR money, and they're going to be here talking to you today, and it's the money from the Ohio Public Works Commission. And those are state dollars, and that can be used as a local match. But if you've already purchased equipment or you're going to have force account work, that cannot be used as a local match, cash in hand. But we've got it down to 5%, so that should be a little easier. Okay, did you have another question? You know what? I haven't looked at the list. I didn't see them on the list.
Kind of double dipping.
Yeah. We do have a little bit of toll revenue credit available to the county engineers as well that they're using for some consultant work on their task orders. So they're taking advantage of it as well. Yeah. Other questions? Oh, one back here.
Revenue credits come through the MPOs?
I think, based on the list, and we can ask Dave Moore when he gets here today, I can check on that and follow up with you. I think that was the case, but don't hold me to it. I'll get an answer for you and let you know at the break or at lunch. I'll have to go back and look at that. I've been so focused on our little world and our little pot of the money that I can go get that answer for you. Other questions? All right, well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. I'm going to be around today. Jeff, and Nicole will be here as well. They know a lot about these programs, and so give us a call or let us know what we can help you with.
Thank you, Andrea. Our next speaker is Greg Butcher, who is the Violet Township engineer, and he also serves as chair of the board for Ohio's Research Initiative for Locals, known as the ORIL program. Greg?
Good morning. When Mike asked me to speak about the ORIL program, he said there'd be 197 people here. Mike, I'm just saying, it looks like there's more than 197 people from this vantage point. Seriously, I want to commend Victoria Beal and Mike Fitch and their team. They do a wonderful job, and I think that, in Ohio we have a very robust LTAP Center, and we should be very proud of that. So I just kind of wanted to give that plug to them. Again, my name is Greg Butcher. Violet Township is about 20 miles east of Columbus in Fairfield County, Pickerington area. I have been on the OREAL board as their chairman for going on 4 years now. And when I look at the program today, I see a diverse group of speakers, and we have ODOT people, ODNR, MPOs, and then we have this township guy who's talking about research. And, I don't have funding to give out, but I think in a roundabout way, you'll see the program that we have here, and it can benefit local agencies, and in a roundabout way, provide funding through research and the establishment of locally beneficial projects. In Ohio, about 84% of centerline miles and 68% of bridges are on the local network. The OREAL board has a mission. It is one of 3 state-sponsored programs in the country, Minnesota and Iowa being the other 2, designed to address the transportation needs and issues of local entities through research. It's all about finding solutions to our problems that we can actually use, best practices, and providing tools, resources, and information to help us do our jobs. It's a collaborative effort between the Ohio Township Association, County Engineers Association of Ohio, Ohio Municipal League, ODOT, Federal Highways, and the Ohio LTAP Center. In a nutshell, you bring your ideas to OREAL. We contract with transportation research professionals to investigate those items and develop solutions. Here is our board. The board has, was formulated in about 2011. We designed the program. We established policies and procedures. We selected ideas to develop into research projects. We select researchers to conduct studies, assign technical advisory committees, review the progress of projects, and assess results for implementation as well as marketing the program. Standard term for our board members is 4 years, except for the academia. There are 2-year terms. Still rather new program. Again, concept formally investigated in September 2011. First meeting was held in February of 2013. We're currently on our 3rd cycle of funding. We have 14 projects. A little under $1.8 million is what we have spent so far. I'll kind of go into, instead of show me the money, we'll show you the projects. The first one is International Registration Program of Truck Licensing for Ohio counties. Essentially, that allows, well, let me back up. Originally, it was proposed by Mahoning County, and the OREAL research was designed to assess the overall economic impact to Ohio counties of non-Ohio registered commercial vehicle fleets based within the Ohio jurisdictions. There is, within Ohio and several of the large fleets, you'll see them, and they'll be Indiana licensed, Maine licensed, and this research has looked at, how we can do better within the state of Ohio and perhaps get that money to the local agencies where the trucks actually reside. 2015, we attended, this was a pooled fund project with several other states. We attended an international conference on low-volume roads and peer exchange. Another project is an investigation of in-situ strengths of various construction widening methods. It's often common for us to use asphalt or concrete to widen our existing roads or backfill other locations. There's other materials such as lime, fly ash, fabric that can be used, and this project specifically looks at structural coefficients, subgrade moduli, to look at different types of pavement design. Also looked at low water stream crossings in the rural Midwest. This is another pooled study. There are several counties in Ohio that have low water stream crossings. Looking in Chardon Township in northern Ohio, looking at different types of de-icers for winter maintenance. Fracking is a big deal, obviously, in eastern Ohio. A bigger deal for us, for the local agencies, are the road user maintenance agreements. RUMAs are basically agreements between local governments and for-profit companies that impact the roads in the areas of these, and specifically in eastern Ohio in the fracking, and trying to come up with a solution of looking at how other states within the country deal with the adverse impact of for-profit companies on local roadways. Another project looks at structural benefits of concrete paving, of steel culvert inverts. This one has just started, and what we're trying to do is to really evaluate some existing methodologies and actually get into the design of how good are we doing with respect to this paving. We're following up our IRP truck licensing impacts. This is a recommendation that we did to the state of Ohio, to the Department of Public Safety, to perhaps redistribute some of the funding to the counties where the actual trucks are located. I'll briefly talk about how the program works. Starts out with an idea. The idea goes to a board. Board develops an RFP. RFP gets posted. Proposals developed by a researcher. We have a winner. I didn't put this slide together, but I think that's a referee and raising the hand of the winner. And then we have the presentation. Overall program, you have the board, the researchers, the technical advisory committees, and the ODOT research team. How does the money work? Started with a $2 million commitment from the Ohio Department of Transportation. It's not a grant. No funds are transferred to locals. No standard maintenance or capital improvements. So we'll have ideas about doing a safety improvement on one of the projects that was talked about in similar, hypothetically, something that was talked about in Warren County. It's not meant to be project specific. This is research specific. How can you get involved? We every August, September, we advertise for ideas. We finalize those in November, and any of those projects, potential ideas, can be submitted to the ODOT on the OREAL website. Just a little bit about the idea forms and how we move forward. We talk about what is the problem, what is the magnitude, and how can we address it, what's the benefit, potential gain, potential impact. The Technical Advisory Committee looks at makes recommendations, demonstrates support and need. We ask for an estimated duration and funding. This is not set in stone, but we have to have an idea of what the project's going to cost. Lastly, we have 3 research areas. I'll just put those up here. One is safety, and I'll mention that some of these overlap, so an idea may encompass 2 or potentially all 3 of our research areas. We have renewal and infrastructure, and we have operations and business practices. This is on our website if you want to dive into exactly what we've characterized and defined as the research or the focus areas. It's our website, and you can email us at that email address there. Any questions?
Greg, where is the final results of these, where you could get a hold of it to look at the final results?
Great question. There is a plethora of information on the OREAL website. Talks about what the status of the projects are, those that are in progress, or those that have finalized. So if you go to the website, it gives the findings. And we have had 4 projects completed, and honestly, there's really some pretty cool stuff within what's been performed thus far.
Greg, can you say again when the program was established and the sunset date is on this program?
Sunset date's a good question. It sort of dovetails into your questions on future funding of the other programs. The concept was initially investigated at the ODOT leadership level in 2011. It was determined that they would provide a $2 million commitment based on 4 $500,000 cycles. Obviously, we're near the end of that cycle. We have one more round to do, and we're having conversations with ODOT on how do we move forward, how do we fund it. Minnesota and Iowa have it built into their state budgets, and those are the only two that we can use as models or templates. So we're having those conversations. We talked about the CEAO. We have several board members as county engineers, potentially contributing. Ohio Township Association, Ohio Municipal League also contributing, but we haven't gotten there yet. If you will.
Thank you, Greg. Do we have one?
Oh, sorry, just curious, any coordination with like the Transportation Research Board, that's the national organization for doing studies like this? This looks like pretty interesting stuff.
Well, thank you. Yes, there is. We, I mentioned the peer exchange in Pittsburgh this past summer. We try not to, repeat what somebody else is doing. We want to make it focused on local agencies. Again, it's not project specific, but a lot of these studies thus far have been synthesis, which is looking at what's going on, what research has been done, and kind of compiling it, bringing it all together, and that sort of thing. So yes, there is coordination, and really that's where our ODOT liaisons come into play. We have non-voting members that are with ODOT's research team, and they assist in that capacity. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Greg. And we are exactly on time, so let's take a 15-minute break, and we'll start up at 10:20. Thanks. We're going to try and start up in about a minute or so. All right. Well, welcome back. And our next speaker is Julie Walkoff from ODOT's Office of Highway Safety.
Thank you, Mike. And look at all these expectant faces in the audience thinking I have a lot of money to give out. I certainly wish I did. We are actually going to have the same funding levels as we had last year, which is $4 million. You probably have everybody's probably already been talking about the new transportation bill, and we don't yet know what that's going to do for safe routes funding specifically, but we do expect a little bit more funding overall for active transportation issues. So just to give you a brief overview, we now have safe routes projects in 79 out of our 88 counties. Since the inception, which was about 10 years ago, we've announced $60 million in projects, a lot of them already built. We no longer have any reserve funding. We have funded every single thing. I mean, we don't have, some programs have money in reserve because projects get pushed back. don't get sold. For a while, we have $20 million. Now we have nothing. So we have been building these projects as they've been coming in. Right now, we get $4 million allocated annually. And one thing that Ohio does that other states are starting to take the lead on, or follow our lead as well, is we still offer Safe Routes to School projects at 100% funding for the locals. So you won't notice that there's a match required, because that match, we take care of that in-house, and we use toll revenue credit. So for you, you can just still consider it a 100% project. And so these are the kind of projects. So an infrastructure project, any community that has an ODOT-approved school travel plan can apply for an infrastructure project. A requirement this year as last year, and hopefully more people will understand this requirement this year, is that you must work with your ODOT district coordinator, especially on an infrastructure project. We don't want to see applications come in that are so far out of the realm of possibility. We would like the applications that come in to, be for the amount of the cap or lower, and to be projects that actually will make it easier and safer for kids to walk and bike to school. Non-infrastructure projects, you can, if you're a school district, a local education agency, or a school, or any local or regional government, you're eligible to apply for a non-infrastructure project, which is education, encouragement. It's often used to support a Safe Routes to School coordinator in your communities. One thing to keep in mind with that is we're still working with MAP 21 funds currently, so it cannot be a nonprofit yet, but that will change probably in the next funding round. And then, of course, school travel plans. We have been doing school travel plans all over the state because you have to have a school travel plan to apply for these funds. If you don't have one yet and you think your school might be eligible, and when we look at plans, what we think is eligible is about half the students attending that school living within a 1 or 2 mile radius of the school. If it's much less than that, it's really too competitive of a program for you to get a project funded. So it would just be a waste of your time to do a plan. We just wouldn't be able to fund it at this time. If that changes in the future, trust me, I will let everyone know. So some people want to know how they can get an advantage during selection. You might have my little nephew park your bike for you, but if that doesn't work out, just make sure that the project you're suggesting is worthwhile, which means it meets the purpose of the program, which is to enable and encourage children in grades K through 8 to walk or bicycle to school. I talk about relationship scoring, and what I mean by that is nothing that we get in as an application is a standalone. Probably every single application we get, as in most years, is a viable application, something that truly needs to be done in this community. However, we have to score them against each other every year. So what might have gotten a good score last year and gotten funded might not this year because so many projects would be above it. And the same thing goes, if you submitted a project last year, you still think it's a good project, I would submit it again because we don't know what else is coming in to score it against. So we have to weigh it out that way. And just keep in mind that we have limited funding. And why I want you to keep that in mind is I want you to really just apply for the portions of the project that are going to be most effective for your students. So if you know that you need a sidewalk in one part of town, but you also need a little something near the school, I would go ahead and apply for the something near the school because it's going to be more effective and more likely to be chosen. General tips, read the guidance. It's not on the website yet, but it will be shortly. So make sure you read it and understand the provisions in it and what we're asking you to do. It has tips on how to get your project to score higher, things that we're asking you to do throughout the year. We want you to make sure your Safe Routes to School program is strong throughout the year. If you have a walking school bus program that you hold regularly, that's going to help. If you participate in walk to school events, that's going to help. And let me tell you, if you do participate in walk to school events and bike to school events in October and May, make sure you go to the national website and register those events, because if you say yes, I participated, that offers you some points. So we're going to check. We're going to look at that national website, and we're going to check to make sure you really did register. If you didn't register, we're going to take those points off. We really like for you to complete the travel surveys annually, but at least every 3 years. And if we don't take points off if you didn't do it every single year, but we will start taking points off if 3 years have gone by. And don't over ask. That's really the most important thing. Sometimes we'll get an application in that's asking for so much money that we can't even figure out what would be the best thing to do with the application. So we kind of have to score it on its merits, what it has in it, and take it from there. We don't really know what the priorities are for the community because they're not listed in the application. So be careful about that. This was fantastic data from 2008 to 2013 that in our 2-mile radius of every K through 8 school in Ohio, crashes decreased by 28%, which at the time I felt showed that our program was working very well. However, we just ran this data again yesterday and updated it, and it's not so high anymore. So there is still a safety problem out there around schools. So let's keep that in mind as we're applying for these projects. And also keep in mind that only 11% of children involved in bicycle crashes were wearing helmets. I just like to say that because I like people to know. All right, this is the Safe Routes to School website. I have listed here everymove.ohio.gov. You can key that in and get to the website, but if you don't want to and you don't want to remember that, you can put in walk.ohio.gov. That'll get you there. Bike.ohio.gov. Any of those 3 URLs will get you to the same place. And is there a pointer here? And over here in this corner, there's an Apply for Funds link. When you click on that, that'll just take you to a page that has a little bit more information. It'll review the information I'm giving you today, and that's what you'll click on also when we're ready to release the applications in January. When we are ready to release the applications in January, the page will change to look a little bit like this. The guides will be on that link on the top, and then if you want to apply for infrastructure or non-infrastructure or school travel plans, it will give you more detail on what you do. I will say, has anyone in here ever applied for Safe Routes to School funds? Is the worst part the application? Come on, the application's the easiest part of the whole thing, I think. Yeah, I'm asking you. Working with the schools is frustrating sometimes, but sometimes the school leads the project and they tell me that working with the city is frustrating. So it just depends on your perspective. The application, really the hard work is done during the school travel plan. The school travel plan lays out what would be most effective for your specific community. So once you go through that and choose something from that, we know it's going to be a good project. So the applications really just have basic questions. The most difficult thing we're asking you to do is to get a certified engineer's estimate for the project that you're proposing. And other than that, I think you could sit down and fill it out in 10 minutes, 15 minutes? What do you guys think? No, I don't think anyone's agreeing with me. The travel plan is really the hard part. So, and we have district coordinators in each ODOT district that can help you through the process. Like I said, if it's an infrastructure project, you're required to coordinate with them. So the timeline's a little bit off here. We're actually going to open the cycle on January 5th, not the 8th. But we will be closing it on the 4th. You'll have from May till sometime between May and June, applicants will be notified. We used to say in May, however, there's now another layer that we go through here at ODOT to get approval for projects, so sometimes it takes a little bit longer than we anticipate. And what we can award this year for a non-infrastructure project, if it's for between 1 and 10 schools, we can offer about $15,000. 11 to 25, 30, 26 or more schools, $60,000. And we feel that that $60,000 should be enough for a large district like that to really help support our coordinator for a year. We also offer full school travel plan assistance, and I can't say this enough. What are you required to do? Anybody? Anybody? Coordinate with ODOT coordinator. Thank you. I know I'm ready for questions, but I do have one other thing I forgot to put a slide in on, and that's the Safe Routes Academy. I don't know if anyone has talked to you about what we have going on with the Safe Routes Academy, but LTAP has been kind enough to coordinate this for us, and we offer classes in we offer training, a whole litany of items. I think there's 9 or 10 different classes, so I can't label them all right now, but a couple of them are walking school bus training, and we offer some crossing guard training, and a lot of these are train-the-trainer type things. So if you have any desire for any of that type of training, you can apply for that at any time through our LTAP website. Okay, any questions? Yes.
Julie, it's, hold on. Julie, it's staggering to me that 10 years have passed.
Me too.
And
I look younger and younger every year.
You need to be commended for the important work you're doing in our state. Tell me,
Thank you.
out of past 10 years, we all have stories. What's your best story, good or bad?
You know what I'm most proud of, actually, and it probably doesn't apply to many people in this room. I'm really most proud of being able to develop large district school travel plans, because those are really some of the most vulnerable communities in our state. The large school districts tend to be in the most urbanized area where people have no choice but to walk and ride their bikes to school or wherever they're going. That's where a lot of people rely on our public transportation system and rely on some form of active transportation. And to me, that's the most important thing that I've done. Thanks for asking. Anything? Sure.
I noticed you covered most of the counties. Do you sort of have a checklist? Are schools and organizations allowed to double dip? I mean, do people go back for 2 projects and 3 projects?
Oh,
or
yeah.
Are you trying to just get everybody to have 1 project?
No, that's actually a very good question. There are many communities that have had many projects. Sometimes, we'll fund a project and it'll work so well in their community, and then maybe they'll build off of that on their own and come back to us for just a little push over the top to help them get a project done. That happened recently up in northern Ohio.
So your internal methodology doesn't reflect, there's no points taken off if you're applying for a 3rd project in 5 years.
Yeah. We are actually looking at that a little bit more closely now. We didn't look at that in the past because there was so much buildup of funds, but it's not going to disqualify anyone from getting selected. But we do look at that, and when it comes down to the final, should we choose Project A or Project B, we might say, well, we gave Project A something last year, so let's choose Project B. But it's not going to kick you off any list. Chris Brown? Wait, you're not allowed to talk until you get a microphone. I love telling people they're not allowed to talk, by the way.
You and I have had conversations about the minimum. What's your feeling on that?
We don't.
For infrastructure.
I know what you're talking about.
They do.
We don't currently have a minimum because we're probably not going to want to build any type of infrastructure project that's lower than 150. Is that what we're decided on, Chris? 100,000. However, if you are putting in an application and you have something going on that you're putting, $500,000 in on your own community, but you need $100,000 to complete it, please put that in. That is not, that's why I don't have a minimum up there. I don't want to build a $50,000 project. I can't afford to build a $50,000 project, to tell you the truth. So if it's a complete project, we want it to be over $100,000. But if you're asking for funds to make up the funding difference of something else, it can be a little bit lower. It can be a lot lower.
Julie, so things like pavement markings in front of the school and the crosswalk and the flasher, would that be considered something that you're...
That is a viable alternative. So if that is something that came out of your school travel plan as a need in your community, that is something we would be happy to fund. If you, put it together with something that was at least $100,000. Or I guess if one signal's involved, it's at least $100,000.
Well, I know those flashing yellow signs, that they are not cheap. and then things like at intersections like wheelchair ramps and things like that.
Now, Ray just mentioned wheelchair ramps. When we touch a part of a curb that doesn't have the right type of ADA ramps, we will help fund those. However, in the past, we have gotten applications from communities that asked us to fund all of their ADA ramps around the community without us touching those intersections. And unfortunately, this is not the program that can fund something like that. Was there a question back there, or am I wrong? Oh, must have been stretching. Anything else? All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Our next speaker is Dave Moore, who is a statewide planning manager with ODOT. Dave?
Good morning. As Mike indicated, my name's Dave Moore. I work in the Office of Statewide Planning and Research here at Central Office. And one of the functions in our office is to manage the MPO and Large Cities program. So the program provides annual capital budgets to Ohio's 17 MPOs and to 4 large cities in the state. So MPOs are urbanized areas larger than 50,000 population. Geographic coverage is indicated on the map on your right. And then in ODOT's lexicon, large cities are large cities with census populations between 25 and 50,000. If you achieve the 50,000 threshold, then you'd be an MPO. So the program has, in general, we have somewhere short of $200,000 a year available in the program. We really match the budget consistent with our growth or decrease in federal revenues totally to the state. In 16, we had current year, we have $186 million available of new money. I'll talk about carryover in just a little bit. And really, this is the perfect audience for this program because the program is truly focused on financing local government projects within these geographic areas. There are 3 types of federal funds that are involved in this program. There's a surface transportation program. That is I like to say that STP money, it's hard to find a good transportation project that is not eligible for STP funds, but in general, it's your traditional highway, new construction, rehabilitation, signals, operational projects, and certain transit expenditures. Turns out that probably safe routes to school projects are probably eligible for STP too, so you can mix and match a little bit of money with the MPO program and or the large city and include a little bit of safe routes to school, and then you've got a nice big project. Turns out a little bit of your money, a little bit of our money, you've got a really nice project after a while. And then we also have federal funds called the Transportation Alternatives Program, and that's a federal program that really is focusing on enhancing transportation networks and infrastructure. And then we also have congestion mitigation and air quality money, and that is really to focus on projects that will reduce mobile source emissions. The way we divide up these three types of federal funds is that each MPO gets an annual allocation of STP and TAP money. Now, a couple of the smaller MPOs give their TAP money back to the state, and those funds or budget are incorporated into Andrea's statewide enhancement program. So they just sort of switch around which program they want to participate in. And then MPOs in U.S. EPA designated air quality areas get CMAQ money, and then large cities only get an STP allocation. We here in Central Office consider ourselves the Central Office program manager for the program, but the MPOs and cities are recognized as the managers for their respective programs. We want them to work to establish a multi-year program of projects We want them to monitor the development of the projects, make sure that it's advancing through environment, right-of-way design, and on to construction. And we want to and we also want the projects to be locked down so that they meet their schedules consistent with ODOT's lockdown policies and protocols. And continuing with our expectations, we focus a lot on these projects actually going to award. We want them to march toward award on schedule, within scope, and on budget. And then we put a lot of focus on making sure that the respective MPOs and cities actually utilize these funds. We really carefully monitor the utilization of the funds, and we monitor the carryover balances. We do allow a certain amount of carryover balance, but not a lot. We're getting increasingly more strict about how much money we will carry over. And if you exceed our thresholds for carryover, we will call back some of the budget. Because if you don't need the money, there's other needs elsewhere in the state. As I indicated, each of the MPOs is the local, and the cities are the local program managers for their programs. So when you're looking to ask for projects, you need to work within the context of the MPO policy boards and the MPO staffs, and they all maintain their own selection processes and their own schedule of projects for balancing the available budgets with when the projects can come to fruition. So really, if you are looking for this kind of funding in an MPO area, pay attention to the MPO processes and meeting schedules in your area, and get to know the staff. Then the large cities, they manage their own programs as well. Project funding is typically 80% federal, typically 20% match. There are certain safety projects consistent with that USC citation where you can actually advance the project with 100% funding. And then I understand there was a question asked earlier, do MPOs have toll revenue credit available to them? Yes, they do. Understand that toll revenue credit is not real money. It is merely credit, as the name indicates. And what it does is it allows you to increase the federal participation rate in your program from 80% to 100, or your projects, excuse me, from 80 to 100%. So it's not new money. So what happens if an MPO or a large city were to finance every single project they have available with toll revenue, they're just going to eat their money up quicker, and they're going to advance a 20% smaller program because you won't have the benefit of those local dollars. So there's pluses and minuses with toll revenue credits. And each MPO is going to manage and approve toll revenue credit funding for their projects just a little bit differently. So here's the range of projects that we had in last year. It's a really nice mix of multimodal projects, kind of reflective of what urban Ohio looks like and the transportation investments that are needed in urban Ohio. We had 150 construction projects. We had 9 public transit projects, which resulted in 38 new bus purchases, and we expended $287 million. So if you recall back to the earlier slide where I said we had $186 million available this year, new money, we had about that amount of new money last year as well. So you can see that the $287 million means that some of our carry forward policies are really coming to fruition, and we burned a lot of carry forward money. So the MPOs and the cities are really getting the message. We do not want large carry forward balances. Let's get in front of inflation, and let's advance these projects now to address the very real needs that are out there in urban Ohio. This is my contact information, and short and sweet. We're ready for questions if you have any. Yes, sir. Nope, you're not allowed to talk, I guess. I won't be as strict as Julie there.
Dave, good job. On the bridges, there's 9 bridges in 2015. Were those all replacement bridges, or were any of them new?
I don't know. I mean,
where do you go for money for a new bridge? Some of our communities are growing.
there are a variety of federal fund types that are eligible for bridges. Like I indicated in the MPO program, STP is pretty much a slam dunk for bridges. We here at the department,
not replacement.
Pardon?
Not replacement. Not replacing existing.
Either or. And we have, and then we here in the department have a bridge program, and we get federal funds for bridges, and then there's a variety of programs that I don't have, I can't pull out right now.
The bridge programs for replacement bridges, though.
But we have able assistance, right, Andrew? You're much more familiar with the range of programs. I know my program.
We had talked a little bit earlier about the municipal bridge program, the small city program. Those are some categories where we fund local bridges. County
we have a high-cost bridge program as well.
Local
probably.
major bridge, and then the county engineers have their pot of money. So as Dave was talking about what the MPOs have available, that's what we provide to support the bridge effort on the local level.
So the key is to participate in events like this, to understand the range of programs that are available, that you can literally mix and match funding to, again, a little bit of your money, a little bit of our money, a little bit of their money. Pretty soon you've got a project. I like to call it fiscal literacy. I mean, you've really got to get to understand the myriad of funding programs that are available to really be proactively, getting projects financed. And in the MPO world, this is a really good program. Yes, sir. Ma'am.
Yes. I am here representing a small township on the very outskirt limits of an MPO. I was looking at the small city earlier, and then I just noticed that the county we're in is part of an MPO.
Okay.
And it's many miles away from the metropolitan area, which tells me the odds of getting funding through that are pretty small. So who would we work with that could help us bridge that
what county are you in?
gap? Lorraine.
Lorraine?
Elyria Township.
Yeah, so you're with NOACA, right?
Yes.
Cleveland MPO? Well, they've got a pretty robust web page. That's where I would start. And then, they have, your township is represented on their committee structure. And so, talk to your local representative who participates in their committee structure. And then NOACA is also, as I indicated in one of my earlier slides, every MPO has its own series of policies and processes and funding mechanisms. So they're going to solicit for projects every now and then. And so monitor their web page, monitor their meeting structure, and put in an app for consistent with their policies. And then you're just going to be in the queue with the other folks. And then they're going to rank them, they're going to score them, and it's going to be principally based on need, on transportation need.
Thank you.
It's no different than any other program. It's all a competitive selection process. Good luck. Do you have your 20% match? That's key. Anything else?
I have a question.
Yes.
On the CMAQ funding, is small cities ever have an ability to access those dollars?
Small.
That's not under an MPO.
Probably not.
And if the air quality is high?
Well, remember I said that there's geographic restrictions on CMAQ money, and you have to be within a U.S. EPA designated air quality area. And in fact, the U.S. EPA air quality designations have a lot of commonality with the MPO map that I had earlier. Not exactly, but guess what? Urbanized areas have a lot of people, they have a lot of traffic, they have a lot of emissions, they have a lot of industry, they have a lot of emissions. So in general, the counties that are challenged with meeting air quality standards are mostly the urban counties, and so a small city is generally outside an MPO. So if you're outside an MPO and or an air quality area, you're not going to be eligible for CMAQ. So we've got 17 MPOs, and 15 of them are in air quality areas. So the Sandusky MPO, Erie County, and Richland County, they don't have CMAQ money available to them because they are so-called US EPA attainment areas. So it's a challenge, but but it's not ODOT's fault. It's it's federal highways because it is linked with the reason the feds put the CMAQ program into place is to provide a funding mechanism to help US EPA designated areas meet their air quality standards, because emissions come from three sources. They come from mobile sources, cars and trucks traversing the transportation networks. They come from industry, smokestacks, and then it comes from what they call area sources, which is this litany of stuff like dry cleaners, paint thinners, weed whackers, outboard motors, and it's a list about that long. But anyhow, you probably didn't need to know that, but anyhow, that's what CMAQ's funding is for, to help that the mobile sector reduce emissions so these areas can meet and maintain their air quality standards.
All right, thank you.
As I ramble on. Are we good? Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dave. Our next speaker is Andy Stone, and he is the city engineer and director of public works for the city of Athens. Andy, welcome.
So I'm the only thing in between you and lunch, so I'll do my best to go quickly. Following Dave, I am not eligible for any of Dave's money because the city of Athens is not in an MPO or a large city, so small cities ends up being the source for a lot of our funding. Before I get started, just so I have an idea of who I'm talking to, how many people work for cities? How many people work for government other than cities? And then how many are consultants that are here? Okay, so that's about a third, and a third. My name is Andy Stone, as Mike said. I'm the city engineer and director of public works for the city of Athens, Ohio. A little background on me. I've been there since the end of 2003 after a stint in the United States Army. And I've worked in a couple different capacities at the city. I am a Buckeye, but I'm also a Bobcat as well from being in the Athens area. So tell you a little bit about Athens. Athens is smack dab in the middle of District 10. We are a kind of a compact metropolitan area in an otherwise extremely rural area. So we have some interesting challenges associated with being a city in an otherwise significantly rural area. We have a great partnership with ODOT District 10, and we've been very successful in getting funding for a number of different projects over recent history, hence why I think they asked me to come be the city example. I want to talk a little bit today about our strategy and about my strategy specifically in going after some of these different funding sources, and I have a couple key points to leave you with. So a little bit more about Athens. Athens is an old city founded in 1797 with Ohio University founded shortly thereafter in 1804. We have a lot of old infrastructure that was built on top of itself in a hilly, compact area. It's a hilly area, and then we have a river that goes through that floods. So there's not a lot of spaces to build, and so things are kind of stuck in small space, and it's really old. I mentioned Ohio University, founded in 1804, there in the city. It's the largest employer by a factor of 10, so I like to refer to us as a company town. Which is not an unfamiliar concept to us Appalachians down there in southeastern Ohio. It's just that our company, rather than being a coal company, is a major university. This is the infrastructure that me and my staff maintain, and I share this as a snapshot with my city council every year to kind of let them know what they're funding and trying to maintain. So the people that maintain it, I put this up here because I realize you're not going after grants to pay for people, but people are a cost to cities. This is my staff in the Engineering and Public Works Department inside the city, about 56 full-time to maintain all that infrastructure I showed you before. And they are kind of right off the top from our revenue to pay for them to operate that infrastructure. And so we see that cost and we set it aside, and then we say what's left is what we have for these matches that we keep talking about here with the grants. I'm going to stick on this slide for a little bit. This is one that I show my elected officials annually and anybody else who listens. And this is kind of a specific, and all of you who work in cities know this. But again, I mentioned I'm in a rural area, so a lot of times the people I compete against for funding are folks that are only looking at transportation. So I show this to my city councils to talk about the complexity of our street network, and specifically the number of road users are not just cars and pedestrians and bicycles and the stuff you see on top, but for me, I'm looking as much underneath the street as I am looking at the top. So my road users include all those people I mentioned before for transportation funding, but also includes my water that I deliver to the citizens, all the sewage I take away from them, the stormwater, the natural gas that Columbia Gas delivers to them. Ohio University, being there, has a number of tunnels underneath our streets that carry steam and chilled water and their communications underneath my street. There is city-owned electric under my street. There's buried fiber optic, buried paired copper. And then you go on top of the street, and I've got American Electric Power as our utility. And then they have any number of strap hangers who are attached to their poles and that I have to deal with whenever I do a project. So a typical road rebuild job for a city oftentimes is more complicated than for a community or a more rural area that just doesn't have all these road users, especially if it's an old city where the right-of-way is small and we figured out a way to cram all this stuff into a small right-of-way. I say this to you because it can help you as you prepare your funding requests and how you're going to split your costs. You can kind of get creative, and I think there's a zapper on here. You can kind of get creative in what costs you're going to attribute to what funding source. For instance, recently we did a project that I'll show you a quick snapshot on later to widen a roadway, rebuild the pavement structure, and then repave it, do new bike lanes, new sidewalks, new curb, and I also replaced a water line in among other things on this project. So, there's a city water distribution line here, and obviously when you put in a new water line, you got a trench, right? So you dig the trench down, put the water line in. The pavement on top of that trench can be attributed to either the transportation project, the repaving of the roadway or the rebuilding of the pavement, or it can be attributed to the water line. And say, because you got to dig a trench, and you can attribute it to that part of the project. So it you have to look at where your funds, where the funds you have are available, where you have more funds available, and maybe that little section of pavement for the project, multiplied times 2 miles or what have you, is better attributed to the water line portion of the project because you have more funds there. Or maybe you don't have very much funds there, and it's better to attribute that to the pavement portion. Neither is wrong. You just have to be consistent through the project. Obviously, with a lot of this federal transportation funding that you're hearing about today from ODOT, utilities aren't eligible for it. And that's kind of a soapbox of mine because cities have to maintain utilities in their streets as one of their road users, but they're just not. So those little portions of it, you try to figure out how you can pay for and still be in compliance with the terms of those funding sources. So the second key point that I want to talk about, besides city streets are complicated, is being able to see yourself. Before you can go and apply for funding, you have to recognize what the revenue is that you have locally, and then how much is available to be that match that they talk about needing for all of these funding sources. So this slide is not meant to make your head explode. It probably does. So the numbers really aren't as important, more so than just the general concept. If you work in a bigger city, there's probably a department whose job it is to kind of be the finance management department and to understand operation cost and capital cost and debt servicing. Smaller communities, in a lot of cases, that guy that his job it is to understand that might also be the guy out filling the potholes. So he doesn't have a lot of time and knowledge to really understand and be able to see himself. So before you can go and ask for outside money, you have to be able to see yourself. I'm kind of that guy inside the city of Athens, at least as it comes to infrastructure. So to show you something I did to demonstrate to my council folks a couple years ago what we have available for that local share, I kind of broke it into transportation, which is this block here, and I've got 4 funding sources for transportation: local income tax that can go to both operations and capital, another levy on top of it that can go to only capital improvements projects, Then I've got state highway funds, which is our portion of the state gas tax that comes to the city, and then also a permissive wheel tax that is that extra money that gets tagged on the license plate. So that leaves me, if I sum it all up and I look at what my operational costs for a given year, this is 2014, that's about what I got available to put into capital. Now, that capital can be projects, but that capital also might be a new street sweeper. So I have to kind of think about that as well. So, and then you multiply that times the number of years that your project is going to be over, and you can kind of see what you have available locally. Same thing for utilities, water revenue, sewer revenue, and we've got a small stormwater fee inside the city of Athens. I broke that into operations and capital. I have less capital on the water and sewer side. That's just the nature of the way we are in any given year. I don't have a lot of success, or haven't had a lot of success in finding grants specific for water and sewer infrastructure. Oftentimes, the way that grants are done for those utilities is via long-term, fixed-rate, low-interest loans, and that's the best I can do for external funding in that water and sewer infrastructure. So seeing yourself, and for the consultants that are in the room, helping the city see themselves is something that, or the community see themselves, is something that you can do that will get you that much further and closer to getting the contract. If you tell them your project's going to cost $1 million, the mayor may throw up his hands and say, well, we don't have $1 million, we're not going to be able to do this. But if you tell the mayor, hey, your project's going to cost $1 million because you spent a little extra due diligence to say, okay, you have $200,000 a year available to go into capital funding, and there's this other source of funding over here that maybe is another $200,000, and then we're going to ask for $600,000, that can get you that much further in getting the project pulled together. So being able to see yourself, I guess, is my second key point, and this is how I do it. All right. There's a slide in your packet to ignore that says agenda, so scratch that one out. The last thing, the last key point that I want to talk about as I get into these individual projects is the skin in the game. You talk about, or all of the folks who've talked about the various funding sources today talk about the local match. The local match or the non-federal match. Seems as though every granting agency that I've ever dealt with, whether it be ODOT or OPWC or Clean Ohio, want to see the local community have skin in the game. You're so much better off if you come to them and if you say, I have a project that costs $1 million and I need $1 million, you're not going to be looked upon favorably. If you say, I've got a project that costs $1 million, I've got $200,000, I've got this other grant that's $200,000, I need $600,000, you'll be a lot more favorable. So the final slides that I'm going to go through are a series of projects that we've done in recent years where I can show you how we've matched some of the individual the individual funding sources that are out there and combine them into one project. This is a kind of a signature piece of infrastructure for us in the city of Athens. We built this in 2010. This was a high crash intersection, several fatalities, high injury location for a high-speed rural highway intersecting a high-traffic, low-speed city street. And this is the first roundabout in southeastern Ohio. We all know about here in recent years the safety benefits of roundabouts, but trying to introduce that roundabout into a section of the state that hadn't seen them was kind of a challenge. The idea came to me when in 2006 I was flying over Baghdad in a helicopter and I was looking down at the city, and you know, that's a city of 7.5 million people, about the geographical size of the city of Columbus. And there was, at that time, not one functional traffic signal in that entire city. Now, they had a lot of intersections that were just giant messes, but they also had quite a few roundabouts that were built in previous years, and traffic still moved. And seeing that, I thought, hey, maybe that will work at my high crash location and congestion location in Athens. So we did this project, combined funding from several different sources. When you see over these projects, the funds that are on the left-hand side, if they're blue, they're local funds, my either transportation funds or water and sewer local funds, and then green typically is something through ODOT, and then red is something else. So this one I had 4 different programs that we coupled along with our local funds, federal safety money, municipal bridge money, and then 2 different transportation enhancement. That's what it was called in 2010. It's transportation alternatives now. Funds. One of them was for public art. Believe it or not, to go in the middle of the roundabout. However, we coupled all of these together to pull together a project that was about $6.5 million. It included the roundabout, included a complete rehabilitation of this bridge over the Hocking River right here. It included a shared use path on the bridge with a barrier in between the traffic and the bike and peds, and then other bike and ped features to get through the intersection. There's a little tunnel that goes underneath 682 as part of the project. So this is one that we're really, really proud of. One note, if you look down here at the bottom, and this was a technique that we used as we prepared our plan set, we had our general summary of all of our items in the plans, and we wanted to maximize all of the funds we had available under safety, municipal bridge, and transportation enhancement. So there were some costs that we may be able to attribute to either safety, or maybe to municipal bridge, or maybe to transportation enhancement. For instance, the barrier in between the shared use path and the bridge could have gone into any one of those pots. We made a point to put it into the quantities into the appropriate column so that we maximized our funds for all three of those. You know, you get your funds before you've done design, and you may go and do design and go, golly, that bridge is going to cost more money than we actually have funds for. And ODOT might say, well, there's no more funds for a municipal bridge for you, so you kind of got to go with it on your own. Well, maybe transportation enhancement, it's not going to cost quite as much, and you might be able to pull some of those transportation enhancement funds that were there for the barrier between the PEDs and the traffic, and stick that cost in there instead of against your bridge funds that you've already gone over. So that's what I wanted to demonstrate with that little participation split actually in our plan set. Oxbow Bridge, this is another one we're really proud of, done a couple years ago. This is a historic bridge. D.H. Oberman was the designer, and this is one we really wanted to keep the historic nature of it. It's an old bridge, beautiful one. It actually goes over where the river used to go. We moved our river in Athens in 1970, so we kept the bridge there, though. And this is a challenging and interesting one from a funding stream because we used local money, and we used municipal bridge money, and then we used bridge credit because we had credit from another bridge, and then we used Ohio University money. So using the money from a city to rehab a historic bridge and some money from a state university through a state agency, spending federal money and following those rules was a very delicate dance in the actual project administration and accounting rules, because all the accounting rules for the different entities were different. So this is one that was a great project. It won a couple awards. The Ohio History Connection came down, the director of that, to see it afterwards. We did some stamped concrete on the abutments underneath to celebrate some of the transportation landmark or infrastructure landmarks in the city of Athens, the arrival of the railway 150 years ago and such. And so this was a great project. West Union, this is one that uses no ODOT money. No ODOT money on this project at all. This was Ohio Public Works Commission in our region. We got $400,000 through that, and then we coupled a lot of the other different funding streams to include OEPA SWIFT money, the Stormwater Improvements Fund, in order to do a repaving, new water line, did a little roundabout right here. The SWIFT money went into opportunities to do stormwater quality, kind of our curb inlets here with the filtration boxes, some stream restoration at an outlet for a storm system, decorative crosswalks. So this is one we're pretty proud of as well in recent time, but no ODOT money on this one. But we coupled a lot of other funding streams in on this one. Richland South, this one just got done. This is probably the slide I showed you earlier of the amount of road users and the various utilities underneath the ground. I had a 60-foot right-of-way on this road that's probably been a roadway for 220 years. Every utility known to man was underneath this roadway, and I had businesses and gas stations and everything else up either side, and it was in this little bitty valley, and there was a stream there. So very challenging project, and we coupled those three funding sources, safety, transportation alternatives, and small cities. We just delivered this one and cut the ribbon here a couple weeks ago. Another funding source that's out there, I don't know if they're talking about it here today or not, but if you live in a portion of the state that's considered in Appalachia, you can access Appalachian Regional Commission money. There's not a huge amount out there through Appalachian Regional Commission, but some of it is designated for transportation projects and specifically for access roads so that you can do economic development. So we did 2 different access roads in the city of Athens where we got $400,000 from ARC. However, it went through ODOT and the district ultimately and followed all the same rules as any other federal highway money would follow to do a project in our Columbus Road area and a project in our East State area. And both of these had to be attributed to significant job gains in those areas. One, there was a new Holzer Clinic, which was a pretty large medical facility going in, and the other one, there's a pretty big retirement community going in. So if you see an employer coming into a community and they need access to better transportation, that's a funding source, and one we were successful with. Safe routes to schools. Julie talked about safe routes to schools. Talked about going back to the well, right? And can you do it multiple times? Well, we got in early on this and got our school travel plan pulled together in 2009, and then subsequently did several infrastructure projects over time. We referred to them as SRTS Season 1, kind of like The Bachelor Season 1, Season 2. That's how we titled the projects, as we did sidewalk completion projects, stair completion projects all over the city, places where there were gaps over a series of years. We've kind of got all the low-hanging fruit now under our school travel plan, so we're trying to go back in there and see what else we can achieve with safe routes to schools. But we've been very successful, and a lot of these are smaller type projects. We didn't ask for 100% funding; we put local funding into it, so you can see cost here, the local share of money versus the safe routes to school share of money for each of those sections of projects. This is real. This is not staged with these kids walking on the sidewalk here. Bikeways. In Athens County, there is the Hakaki and Adina Bikeway, which is it's a 25-mile or so rails to trails bikeway built in the late 80s and early 90s, and that we've really made a point to try to turn into a transportation asset and not just a recreation asset. It runs right through kind of the heart of the city, and we really put a lot of effort into spurs off of that as a means to increase active transportation in our community. And so we've been successful with a couple of different bikeway projects over the year. One that just went to bid that includes a new bridge will connect an area of our city called the Columbus Road area that otherwise wasn't connected to the bikeway. We combine local funds, transportation alternatives funds here, and then ODNR Clean Ohio Trails funds. And we haven't built this yet, but we did successfully award it. It will be potentially, we're close, we're not sure, but potentially the longest bikeway truss bridge span, 220 feet or so. Was it 220, Dave? 240 feet. It might be the longest one in the state. We're not sure. We're researching that when it gets built. And then lastly, the East State extension. We've extended that Hakaki and Adina Bikeway a couple times. And utilized the same type mix, that transportation enhancement back when it was called that, combined with that Clean Ohio Trails funding and then some local funding in order to package things and extend the bikeway. So the last project I want to talk about is one that is on deck, and we think we have our projects, or our funding sources all pulled together. Those of you who are familiar with Athens, the US 50 and US 33 used to go right through the city, and in 1970, at the same time we moved the river, we also moved US 50 and US 33 and created what's known as today the bypass, which is this big roadway here, this roadway here. This used to be US 50 right here. US 33 pretty much bisected the community, and this has turned into a pretty significant regional retail district, not just for the city, but also for the region folks coming in. So I've got a big choke point right here on East State Street. And we're going to do a project that couples improvements to congestion on East State Street as well as pedestrian safety, repaving. I'm due to repave this section, sidewalk improvements, signal improvements along East State with some work that ODOT, the district, is going to do up top in order to alleviate crashes, reduce congestion in this important area of the city. We've templated. It's a little over $6 million for what we want to do. We almost have all the funding lined up. So this is my beautiful mind map of how I was going to pay for it. and I sent this to ask for money, to grovel for money on the project. So here are my costs that we kind of pulled together through a couple of studies that we did. Some of it is attributable to the interchange. Some of it is attributable to repaving of the longer corridor, adding of sidewalks, pedestrian improvements. I managed to pull a small cities funding for the project, which we got that awarded already. And then I'm asking for other funding. We have, in that particular area, tax incremental financing on, which was something we did when that area expanded and a significant amount of retail establishments came in the early 2000s. So we get a little bit of property tax money to help pay for infrastructure in that area, plus our local rehab levy. I'm going to couple that with it. I'm going to use OPWC issue 1, and I maybe am making a stretch here, thinking that I'm going to get awarded in 2017, but we think it's a very competitive project, so we're pretty certain that OPWC will pick this one when the time comes to ask for that. And then I just recently asked for the remaining $3 million through the safety program, or perhaps another source, and we're waiting on the award letter for that today, and we're pretty excited about this one. The district has been very supportive of us on this because this is a crash problem on their radar and a congestion problem on their radar as well. Plus the Nelsonville bypass, which many of you may be familiar with, opened here a few years ago, and the district sees the US 33 corridor as a major corridor for mainly truck traffic coming to this area of the state, and so the potential for some really catastrophic crashes due to congestion down here and the increase in truck traffic is pretty significant. So the district is really supportive of this on this project. But that's my mechanism to visualize what I need and then to go and ask for it and demonstrate that, hey, we really have thought this out, and if you fund us, we'll be able to get it built. So the three things that I wanted to leave you with as far as kind of key points are: city streets are complicated, and the road users are not just the bikes and peds and cars and trucks on the top, but also the utilities underneath. The second thing is you have to be able to see yourself and really see your own revenue before you know what you have to ask for. And the third thing is you got to have skin in the game and show that you are putting your own investment in before you go and you ask for external funding. So that's the extent of my presentation, and if anyone has any questions, I'll go ahead and take those.
I'm curious with the amount of projects that you had. How do you, with your city council, do capital planning?
It's a great question. So it's kind of me. I do a six-year rolling capital plan. It's a really flexible plan per se. The council they don't get into it too much. They do give input, as I build that six-year plan, and then I'll update it from year to year moving forward. I'll try to get their priorities. I'll try to get the mayor's priorities. Oftentimes the priorities make themselves known through a series of water breaks that maybe happen in a particular area. Complaints. I have a big, gigantic wastewater plant project that's just getting finished, and it's been a smell issue, right? So it's that priority has made itself known to the council. But I'm fortunate in Athens is that although we're a statutory city, everybody in my council is all from the same party. So you don't have the problem in my city of I'm not going to vote for that because the guy that introduced it's from the other party. Now we got other problems. Political aspects, and all politics is local, right? But I don't have that problem per se. So in general, it's that 6-year rolling plan. It's nested with our city comprehensive plan, which is a 20-year kind of comprehensive plan, and that capital plan rolls at that 6-year window. And it kind of overlaps with Ohio University's, not very much, but Ohio University has to submit a capital plan that shows a 6-year planning horizon as well every 2 years with the biennium. So it kind of fits in with that as well. So that's my technique. All right.
The City of Athens has done a great job of demonstrating here today how you can leverage dollars and put packages together and put solid applications together for funding. So take some time to look at this when you get back to your office. There's not always a guarantee that you're going to get funding if you have a well-organized packet and project application, but this is really where you need to begin. Be organized, understand what your funding sources are going to be, and be ready to explain what your needs are. And you will be successful. If we don't select you 1 year, reapply and we'll reconsider. But great job, Andy, and thank you for your presentation today.
Super. Thank you. Any questions? All right. Thank
you. Okay, we are right on time to take the lunch break, so let's plan to start up again at 12:20. Thanks. All right. Welcome back to the afternoon session. And our next speaker is Macy Legg with ODOT's Office of Transit. And please refer to the packet here. So, Macy, thank you.
Hi, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed your lunch and everybody feels rejuvenated and ready to hear all the rest of the funding opportunities that ODOT has to offer you. So, my name's Macy Legg. I work with the Office of Transit, and I'll be going over the different funding opportunities that you can utilize through our office with you today. If you have any questions about anything that I go over or any other opportunities through our office, you can email me at the email address provided, and I'll make sure to get your questions to the appropriate person. So I'll just go ahead and get started. This first slide is a brief overview of the transit network in Ohio as it stands today. The transit entities in Ohio provide roughly 115 million trips per year. There's currently 61 public transit systems. 27 are urban and 34 are rural. And we recently did a transit needs study to try to identify the missing gaps in Ohio, where transit stands today and how it can be improved. And through that study, we determined there was 27 counties that currently have no public transit service. This map defines the fixed route service, meaning the services that have predetermined routes that the buses follow to pick up passengers. And it also defines where the demand response service is, which means it's a door-to-door transit service where passengers can contact the system and the system will come to their door and pick them up and take them to places outside of the fixed route. The dark green counties are the areas with fixed route service that offer countywide demand response, and the light green are simply fixed route with no demand response. This map is the map that defines the counties that currently have no public transit service. So if you're within one of these counties, we've identified that you have a gap in service, and we're working on, creating a better program to try to meet these needs. This map outlines where the transit systems are in Ohio. The yellow is the large urban, so that means any area with a population of 1 million people or more. Those yellow make up 8 of the 27 transit systems I spoke to earlier. The purple and light green are small urban areas, which means that they have a population of 200,000 to 999,999. That one extra person, you are now large UZA. You can't have that. The light green are the ones outside of a large urbanized area, and the purple are within. And the pinkish reddish is the rural, the 34 rural counties. And all the circles with numbers in them, that shows the number of specialized vehicles that have been awarded through our program. And these vehicles primarily serve seniors and individuals with disabilities. They can serve the general population, but the main focus of those vehicles is to reach that, passenger group. This slide provides a brief overview of Ohio's funding sources and what they contribute to transit. Statewide, Ohio spends roughly $900 million per year on transit. 55% of those funds come from the locals, 25% comes from the federal government, and the state contributes 3%. So now I'll get into the different programs that provide funding. The FTA provides quite a few programs, but I'm just going to touch on these 4 today because they're the most relevant to you. The 4 that I'm going to go over is the 5307 Urbanized Area Formula, 5310 Enhanced Mobilities for Seniors and Individuals with Disabilities, 5311 Formula Grants for Rural Areas, and 5324 Public Transportation Emergency Relief Program. So first we have the 5307 program. And a reoccurring theme throughout this presentation is going to be, this is a program you're technically eligible for, but with the current funding levels from the federal government, we can't accept new applicants. So this program, for example, is for people that are in large urbanized areas or small urban areas. And it provides, capital assistance, planning assistance, operating assistance. And you can see the eligible recipients are transit authorities, transit boards, local government entities. And we currently have 27, like I said, and they're kind of set. That's who we fund each year, and it's formula-based, so based on their population, their trips, statistics, things like that, that's how their allocation gets determined. And we kind of want to put it on your radar because it technically is a program you're eligible for, and it is a program that you could utilize in your area to, to improve transportation. But that might be in the future, because right now with the current funding levels, we just can't accept any more applicants and still be able to provide funding to our current 27. This next program is the 5310 Enhanced Mobility for Seniors and Individuals with Disabilities. We also refer to this as our specialized program. So in the map where you saw all the vehicles that were operating around the county, this is the program that they're funded out of. This program is a discretionary program, and we accept applicants every year. The only thing that you have to qualify to get funding is your main program purpose has to be to serve seniors or individuals with disabilities. So while you can use these projects to provide transit service to the general population in your area, we just want to make sure that who you're focusing on is these 2 groups, because that's what the purpose of the funding is for. Under MAP 21, this program changed quite a bit. So if you're in a large urbanized area, you have to go through usually an MPO or a transit system, because they are now the designated recipient of 5310 funds from FTA. But if you're in a small urban or rural area, you can apply through our office for this funding. And the different types of projects you can get through this funding is vehicles, computer hardware and software, communications equipment, vehicle maintenance dollars, operating assistance, and everything other than the operating is at a 80% federal with 20% local match. So if that's something that you're interested in, that's something you can apply for each year. And those applications are usually available in the summer. and we provide an announcement on our website. So if that's something that you're interested in, you should definitely check into that come next summer. We just finished up our round for calendar year 2016. This is the 5311 program for our rural areas. It's very similar to 5307 in the opportunities that it provides, but it's also unfortunately similar to 5307 in the fact that we already have our 34 set recipients, and while we are technically allowed to expand that program, the current funding levels don't allow us to do that. But it's definitely something that is on our radar, and we want to be on your radar as something that could help you improve transit in the future, because as you saw from our transit needs study, there is definitely plenty of areas in Ohio that currently don't have any transit service. So, you know, we're making that push for more funding, but you know how that tends to go. So if these ever become available to you, and if we ever can accept future applicants, we'll of course make that announcement and jump up and down and make sure everybody knows about it, because it'll be a miracle. The next and final FTA program that I'll talk about is the 5324 Public Transportation Emergency Relief Program. Luckily, we haven't had to utilize any funding for this program because this program is designed to help states and public transportation systems repair, protect, and replace any equipment or facilities that is destroyed in a natural disaster. So we definitely want you guys to be aware of this program, because if anything happens like Sandy, in New Jersey, they all had to go through this program so that they could rebuild their infrastructure and get up and running again. So we want to make sure everybody knows that this is something that can come in and really help if anything happens in Ohio, similar to those unfortunate events that have happened on the East Coast in the past couple of years. States, government authorities, and public transportation agencies are the eligible recipients under this program. Next, I'll talk about the funding available through the Federal Highway Administration. These two programs are the programs that have transit-eligible projects, so these are the two I'm going to focus on today. First is the CMAQ program. I have a map that I printed out and I put on the back table. Really should have been included in the presentation, but somehow there was a little bit of oversight on that part. But this map, it outlines the different eligible counties. So if you're in one of these counties, you've been identified as having poor air quality. So projects for you would be eligible under this program. And the main focus is on projects that would improve the air quality and the emissions in your area. So, for example, vehicle or buses are eligible under this because essentially buses remove cars, which remove congestion and emissions, so which then in turn improves the air quality. So that's like the type of projects that would be eligible under this program. Next is the surface transfer. Okay. You see this slide? You see it. Now forget everything you see, because like everything's wrong, and I just realized this. So don't pay attention. Just listen to me, because it's wrong. All I'm going to be talking about is the Surface Transportation Program, the 5309. I don't know where that came from. It just came in somehow. But essentially, this program funds preventative maintenance, equipment, basically anything CMAQ doesn't fund, this program comes in and cleans up. It funds the rest. It's just more flexible than CMAQ. It doesn't have the same constraints in being your projects have to improve air quality and congestion. It kind of covers all those other things outside of that. This is actually 80% funding, not 10%. I don't know why that's there. And it serves urbanized areas with populations over 200,000 and areas with population of 50,000 or less. My one-horse town with one stoplight has more than 5,000 people, I do believe. So not accurate. It's 50,000 or less. Finally, I'm going to talk about the 4 programs that the state administers, which is the Urban Transit Formula, Rural Transit Formula, Elderly and Disabled, and Ohio Transit Preservation Partnership Program, aka OTPPP. So, this Urban Transit Formula program, it's very similar to 5307. In order to be eligible for this program, you have to be a 5307 recipient, but basically the state has a stake in this program with general revenue funds, and we provide the oversight for that. So it's very similar in 5307. So if you're not a 5307, technically you can't utilize this funding, but maybe one day you all can be, when there's pigs flying and, you know, and all that. You guys can contact us and we'll be like, yes, here's all the money you could ever want. Very similar situation with Rural Transit Formula. This is, again, a supplement to the Section 5311 program. So, you know, if you guys ever become 5311 subrecipients, you can then be supplemented with state money as well to fund those same projects. This Elderly and Disabled Fair Assistance Program is simply, it's only a state program. It has no federal stake in it at all. And essentially what that is the transit systems that provide a reduced fare to seniors and individuals with disabilities and can be reimbursed through the state for that gap. The Ohio Transit Preservation Partnership Program. This is a discretionary program. So again, it's similar to 5310 in that we select new projects each year. Everybody has to apply each year. There's no set people who are awarded. And it's very similar in the projects that it awards as well. And the eligible recipients are the transit authorities, transit boards, counties that own and operate public transportation systems, and transit systems that receive 5307 funds. So that wraps up all the different opportunities, which mainly, if you think about it, it's 5310. So do you guys have any questions for me regarding any of these opportunities? Anybody? All right, well, as always, if you think of anything, you have my email in your packet, and I would be happy to help you. Okay? Thank you.
We just wanted to let everyone know that we'll get with Marcy and provide an updated version of the PowerPoint via email to everybody through the email addresses you gave us when you registered.
Thanks, Macy. Our next speaker is Melinda Lawrence with ODOT's Division of Finance.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am the program manager for the State Infrastructure Bank, and it's otherwise known as the SIB, and it's a revolving loan program that assists communities with their transportation projects. The bank's been around for almost 20 years now, and we've done over $617 million in loans. And today I'll touch upon the history and the background of the program and then go over, there's 2 different types, there's loan and bonds within the SIB. So the bank was created in 1995 by U.S. Congress, and Ohio was one of 10 pilot states selected to participate in the program. We were the leader in this program. We were the first to pass enabling legislation in the nation and the first to issue loans for road, transit, and aviation projects. The bank was capitalized with $137 million, and that includes federal and state funds. And there's different accounts within the SIB that are based on the type of eligibility of the project, whether it's federal or state, et cetera. Now I'm going to get to the program detail. I just want to say that the SIB is one of the easiest programs to use. There's not a lot of red tape. It's all housed within ODOT. All decisions are made here. The program is first come, first served based on funding. And when I spoke here a couple years ago, there was $120 million. The bank was flush with money, and I was begging for business. Down to about $5 million now, but I still have money available for smaller loans, and we also have the bonds that we can help you with. All public entities are eligible to apply for the loan. We do not issue loans to private. And eligible projects include any type of transportation project. It could be a federal, state, local road. We do transit and aviation projects. We've helped port authorities and also done a bicycle path and rails to trails and also assisted railroads. This is the basic features of the program in a nutshell. Everything is flexible. Nothing's set in stone. You can borrow up to 100% for financing. The maximum term is 30 years, and I know on the ODOT website it does say 10 years, but the committee decided to extend the term to help meet communities' needs. The interest rate is 3%. That is non-negotiable. That's for everybody. There is one closing cost associated with the program, and we have an external financial advisor, and he helps through the whole loan process, and his fees range from $1,000 to $10,000, and that's based on the amount of the loan. So the beauty of this program is we have deferred repayment options. So if you would get a loan, from the loan closing date, you have 1 year interest-free with no payments due, and then the second year, interest accrues to the principal borrowed, and there's still no payments due, and your first payment would be due the 31st month. So you have 2.5 years before a payment is due. This does exclude metropolitan planning organizations and the County Engineers Association because they do pledge their future federal allocations, and federal highway won't pay for capitalized interest. The process could take anywhere from 30 to 60 days. I've closed a loan in 3 days, all the way up to 2 years, and it's typically based on locals' response time. And we do accept applications year-round. There is a prepayment penalty of 3% for the first 36 months. Then after that, it can be paid off with no penalty. So if you're deciding what to pledge for a loan, there's several different sources that can be used, and all of these are examples of what other communities have pledged. It could be your gas tax, non-tax revenues. We have a lot of tax increment financing districts that have been pledged. And if this is pledged, we always require a secondary pledge, and that's due to the uncertainty of the projected revenues of that TIF. License plate and registration fees, and airports have pledged their passenger facility charges, a part of it, and then garage parking fees. And the second side, some additional repayment sources. If you would ever receive an earmark or a grant and you're going to use the SIB to advance construct the project, you would want to have language stating debt service verbiage within it. And if that would ever come up, then just give us a call and we'll give you the type of language that needs to be put in it. And also future federal allocations of metropolitan planning organizations and the county engineer can pledge for loans. The SIB will pay for any phase of a project, the right-of-way, which includes appraisal, acquisition, and legal fees associated with any acquisition, construction, engineering, and inspection and design. The only thing we will not pay for is environmental, and that needs to be clear before any funds are dispersed, but it can be simultaneously as a loan application is going through the process. So the application process is fairly painless. It's a 6-page application. You would fill that out, submit it to me. It is located on the ODOT website. The financial advisor and myself go through it, and we schedule a meeting with ODOT leadership, and they either approve or disapprove the loan. And if it is approved, then we send out a document stating the terms of the loan, and if you would agree, you would sign that, and then we'd obtain the director's signature, and the Attorney General's office would draft the loan documents. So now just to show you a couple statistics and graphs of the SIB portfolio. This chart shows all the loans since the inception of the program. And back in 2004, as you can see, there was a huge spike in business, and that was due to the 6-cent gas tax increase. And then it kind of wandered down to just a few in 2011. So back up in 2013, it started picking up, and that's once again when I was flush with money. And we've been marketing the program heavily. So in 2014, we had a record-breaking year of $78 million. And then this past year was another $83 million. So it's been extremely busy the last couple of years. And there's been 194 bonds and loans issued for over $617 million. This pie chart just shows all the different types of transportation modes and the loans and bonds through each one of those modes. There's 162 highway loans, 4 railroad. We assisted 2 transit projects, 14 airports. We've done 1 bike path, and the other category is parking garages and water transportation. So we've covered every type of mode for transportation. And this shows the amount available to lend. As I said, I had $120 million 2 years ago. Now I'm down to $5 million. Well, actually, it's about $7 million today. It's gone up a couple. The biggest chunk of the money is in the general revenue fund, and this is for non-federal eligible projects. And there's probably about $2 million in the federal eligible project. And this is just a fun graph. I had to put it in here. It just shows all the money that's been available throughout the quarters since March 2009, and you see how much money there was and what we've decreased to today. And then I'll just show you a couple pictures of what locals have done. And I know the last time I gave this presentation, there's probably 3 or 4 communities that did come forward and obtain loans. The Village of Ottawa borrowed $500,000 for 2 different projects. One was for a parkway extension, and the other was for a road reprofiling project. The City of Dublin and the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, or MORPC, borrowed $35 million. And this is I-270 and State Route 33. It's the north side mega fix. There's going to be a Clover Stack interchange here, and it's an $85 million project. So the CIB a lot of times comes in and fills the funding gap for these types of projects. Village of West Jefferson borrowed $500,000 for their local share, and this is a roundabout at I-70 and State Route 229 for all the industrial development taking place there, and this will end up being a double roundabout, and it's for semi-trucks. So with the success of the loan program, we went ahead and leveraged the bank and started issuing bonds. And this took place back in 2006. What we did is leverage the portfolio of the CIB, and what we do is pledge existing loan repayments as security. The bonds are issued to create new loan proceeds at tax-exempt interest rates. The features are a lot like the loan program, but it's for the larger projects, and right now with the balance is so low, anything over $2 million will most likely be referred to the bond program, and anything under $2 million will be considered for a loan. But this is at the committee's discretion and also the balance of the bank at that time. There's favorable terms. We have tax-exempt revenue bonds. There's long-term fixed rates. And if we would do the bond issuance, it does not apply to the community's debt limitation. If you identify a specific revenue source as repayment, and that's your general obligation, then it would not count against your debt. Closing takes a little bit longer because there's a lot of external parties, the Ohio Treasurer's Office, legal counsel, underwriters, so it's 60 to 90 days or longer. The maximum term is 25 years for this, and we can capitalize interest to defer the repayment up to 3 years. The background of the program is the first bond program was the General Revenue Fund, and it was established in September 2006. We did a $5 million reserve on it, and it's AA- rated through Fitch. And the Title 23 bond program, which is to cover the federal eligible projects, was done in July 2008 with another $5 million reserve and a AA rating. And both funds still have capacity to do a lot of issuances. This is a breakdown. We've done 7 bond issuance, a table showing all the different borrowers. From 2006, we did 4 back-to-back in 2014. They all closed from September through December of that year. And with the City of Cincinnati and the City of Dayton, they received loan bond blends. We gave them $2.5 million for a loan, and then they bonded out the rest of their project costs. And the interest rate that you're seeing at the end is all in. So Ashtabula did an issuance, and what they are doing is over 40 roads, local roads, repaving and rehabilitation. This is just one of the local roads they did. It's a 2-year construction season project. And the City of Dayton is doing the Water Street parking garage river development downtown. This is just the pictures of the construction of the garage. And then they sent me this, and this is just, the bottom picture is back in 1987, what it looked like, and what it looks like today. In 87, it's all concrete and asphalt, so they've done a lot to develop that area. And the last page is a matrix between the differences between the loan and bond programs. It's good for reference. If you ever have any questions, just email me or call me and I'll help you out. Or if you ever need assistance filling out an application, I can look at it before you submit the final one. This is my contact information. And I know there's quite a few of you out here by the registry that already have loans. Can you raise your hands just so I know who's all here? Yeah. It's great working with everybody. And so anybody have any questions on this program? Yes.
Yeah, I was just curious if this could be used for the 20% match on urban paving projects.
Yes.
Melinda, can you tell us a little bit about the composition of your board committee you were mentioning?
It's executive leadership, finance, director's office. They get together and, well, we give them all the applications. They make the decision. They vote.
So are they all ODOT employees?
Yes, everybody's housed within ODOT. It's all ODOT executive leadership.
All in this building?
Yes, it's all housed here. Well, I thank you for having me here, and I know I showed you the money a couple years ago, and hopefully I could still help you out if you need it. Thank you.
Thanks, Melinda. Our next speaker is Mary Fitch with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. So welcome, Mary.
Mike Fitch and I are no relation, just in case you're wondering. That we know of. I'm here from the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. I'm going to talk to you about 4 grant programs that we have at ODNR. There are other ones, but these are the ones that are administered out of the Office of Real Estate where I work. Which button is it? Green one? Oh, there. Okay. Sorry. The first one I'm going to talk about is the Clean Ohio Trail Fund. It's one of our 2 trail grant programs. It's one of the 4 parts of the Clean Ohio program that was passed in November of 2000, overwhelmingly approved by Ohio voters. The other 3 components of the program, green space, agricultural, and the revitalization fund, are administered by other agencies, but the Clean Ohio Trail Fund is administered by ODNR. We have completed 10 rounds of funding for trails to date. The Clean Ohio Trail Fund seeks to fund long-distance trails and critical segments of long-distance trails. It seeks to provide links between important community areas, schools, parks, neighborhoods, business centers. It seeks to purchase corridors that can accomplish those criteria, both railroad and other types of corridors. And it seeks to provide some type of economic benefit. So you kind of think, is there a transportation component where you could ride your bicycle or walk from point A to point B for more than just outdoor recreation? It's a very competitive program. We're very focused on trail. So there's not a lot of bells and whistles that usually go along with these projects. In fact, we probably won't fund like a trailhead by itself through Clean Ohio, but a trailhead might be funded if it was part of a larger trail project. We ask that it's a trail that has been identified in at least a regional trail program, trail plan, or a statewide trail plan. And we have a statewide trail plan. It's a little bit out of date, but we hope to update it soon. We have had a lot of applications for this program. Sometimes up to $25 million in total have been requested from Clean Ohio. We customarily have 6.25, give or take, million to award each year. And as you can see by this graph, some years are very competitive, more so than others, but it is overall, year in and year out, a competitive program. We have awarded over $61 million and to 219 projects. A lot of trail miles have been built in this time, 400 miles of trail. We've helped with the acquisition of a lot of corridor. 35 new bridges have gone in with Clean Ohio support, as well as some tunnels and some trailheads that, like I said, were part of a larger project. Here's some pictures of some Clean Ohio projects. This was a nice bridge. I believe we worked with ODOT for some transportation enhancement or alternatives money to put this new bridge in over the Great Miami River. And here's a nice trail that goes through Gahanna near Columbus, Ohio. This is a good scoring project because it goes through a community, provides a lot of links. It's in a riparian corridor, so it's an excellent example of a good Clean Ohio project. And this is an addition to an existing tallgrass trail in Marion County that we recently awarded funds to. The types of projects that are eligible are land acquisition, and if we look for corridors, not, say, a big square park that you plan to put a trail in, but a corridor that a trail would be built on. Trail development, as I said, we're looking for the big, long-distance regional trails, trailhead facilities if it's part of a larger project. And engineering and design is eligible as a cost. We'll even reimburse you for your costs that occur before you go into contract, if it's within 2 years of when you go into contract with us, which is kind of a hard date to nail down, but we'll work with you on that. But you do have to have prior approval for that. It's a 75-25% program. We will reimburse you up to 75% of your costs. You can come to us with donated materials, donated in-kind labor, donations of land for your match, and we will award up to $500,000 for your project. It's state bond money, so there is a big interest in getting it spent quickly. So you only have, from the time of your project agreement execution, about 15 months to get this your project done. So we want projects that are pretty much ready to go. Applications are due each year on February 1st. It's a postmarked deadline. We're old school. We still want paper applications with the maps. That's how we're doing business right now. Our schedule is that we review all the applications. Trail projects can be pretty complicated, so we go out and see most of them, and we score them, and then we have an advisory board, the Clean Ohio Trail Fund Advisory Board, and we present our recommendations to them. We discuss in a meeting all the projects. Then once they approve our recommendations, we go to the Director of ODNR for his approval. This all takes a little while, so we usually don't award our projects or make our recommendations until the fall in October. And then we work with you over the winter to get the project into agreement, to kind of tidy up any loose ends that you might have, and then you are good to go the following spring. The requirement is that your project, because it was funded through state bond, tax-exempt bond money, that it has to be open to the public for 15 years. And it's always important to remember with grant projects not to start on your project before you're in project agreement, with the exception of the engineering design. Applications are online, although as I stand here they're not, but we're working on the revision for next year. They should be up online within the next week or two, and then once again they're due on February 1st. The other grant program that we have for trails is the Recreational Trails Program, and whereas Clean Ohio is state money, the Recreational Trails Program is federal money. It's a very, very tiny, tiny sliver of the transportation bill. It's currently in MAP 21, which is currently extended past its expiration date. RTP is a lot more flexible than Clean Ohio. If you're interested in doing more of a recreational loop trail in a park, this is the program for you. Other types of trails like mountain bike trails, hiking trails, exercise trails, equestrian trails, all types of trails are eligible for funding through RTP. You have to be a political subdivision. We also fund state and federal agencies through RTP, which we do not do through Clean Ohio, and nonprofit 501c3s are eligible for funding through RTP and through the Clean Ohio Trail Fund. Trailhead facilities are fine. If you just want to apply for a trailhead facility on its own that's next to a trail, that would be eligible in this program. Even education and safety, environmental protection type projects that go along with the trail would be, small ones would be eligible. It's an 80-20 program. You're required to have a 20% match. The maximum project size, or the maximum award is $150,000. And once again, we're under a lot of pressure from Federal Highways, who provides this money, to get the projects done quickly. So we'd like to see your project done within 15 months after your grant agreement is signed. Now, the Recreational Trails Program is funded through gas tax, and they have figured out about how much money is spent by recreational users of ATVs, dirt bikes, and snowmobiles. And so that figure is used to provide funding to the RTP program. So there is a requirement that 30% of our funding each year go to fund motorized projects. So year after year, we provide virtually all of this required funding to our ODNR Division of Forestry, because we have 4 motorized trail areas, and to the Wayne National Forest, which is a federal agency. We get very, very few, if any, applications from local governments for motorized trails, but we're always hoping that we will receive some. So put the word out there. Most of the motorized trails in Ohio that are public are in the southern part of the state. There is only the Maumee State Forest up near Toledo that has some motorized trails. So there's a huge need for more public motorized trails in the northern part of the state. Pardon me? Snowmobiles, that's true. I'm talking more ATVs, but snowmobiles, there's more availability in our state parks as well. This is an example of a trailhead that was funded in the southwestern part of the state. And this is an example of a trail that was funded up in the city of Euclid that connects up to a fishing pier that was recently installed. And this is sort of a slide out of order, but just to show you that volunteer time is eligible as match to both Clean Ohio and the RTP program. And RTP is also a pretty competitive program. We were able to assist with about 33% of the funding that was requested last year. About 1 in 4 applications was funded. Next year, in 2016, we expect to have about $1.6 million to award. And once again, the applications are due February 1st. It's a postmark deadline. Also, this application will be up very soon. Dwan Hammonds, who could not be here today, he's the manager of these 2 trail grant programs. And if you have any questions, here's his contact information. He can really tell you about the nuts and bolts of the program. This is more or less just an overview. Now I'm going to talk about our other 2 grant programs for recreational projects. And these, you can also get money for trails through these programs, but they're more all-inclusive to all sorts of outdoor recreation, development, and acquisition of parkland. The first is NatureWorks. It's been around since 1993, also voted in by the voters of Ohio, and it's also funded by state bonds. It's a requirement that you either own your property or have a 15-year non-revocable long-term lease on the property if you're the applicant. All local subdivisions of government are eligible to apply. School districts are not eligible. Nonprofits are not eligible. State agencies are not eligible, nor federal agencies. So NatureWorks you can use to build anything from a spray park to a restroom in your park, to buy a new park, buy more land for an existing park, boating access, trails, basketball courts, climbing walls, anything you can think of that you might find in a park that would provide outdoor recreation or support to outdoor recreation. Parking lots in your park would be eligible for this program. Also, rehabilitation of existing infrastructure. If you've got old tennis courts that are really going downhill and you need to have them completely redone, that is another eligible type of project. Engineering design is also eligible as part of the project. It's a 75-25% program, and you can use other grant sources as your match. However, there is a requirement in the Ohio Revised Code that 20% of your project costs be local money. So your other grant is really only going to be able to help you out with about 5% of your costs. But donated labor, in-kind labor, is once again allowed as part of your match. So it's a pretty user-friendly grant program. There is a requirement, just like what I mentioned for the trail grants, that the property has to remain in public outdoor recreation use for 15 years after project closeout. That's because of the bond funding. You have a little bit longer to get these projects done, about 1.5 years to 2. NatureWorks is allocated by county based on a formula that includes your population. So this is, I know you can't see this, but this is how the allocation broke down in 2015, give you some idea what next year might look like. We don't know how much money we're going to have available next year. It'll come to us in the capital budget. But you only compete against other applicants from your county, so it's a much less competitive program. In last year, we were able to fund about 70% of all applications. Not all of them in entirety, but most of them in entirety. And if, say, Butler County, we only receive 1 application from Butler County or 2 applications that request just what's available for Butler County, then they're automatically funded as long as it's an eligible project. So it's a really user-friendly program that's not quite as competitive. Year after year, it seems like our most competitive county in the state is Cuyahoga County. We get a lot of applications from Cuyahoga County. And they have a lot of money up there because they have a lot of population in this program, but it's very competitive. Here's an example of a nice NatureWorks project that was completed in the last few years in Broadview Heights for a spray park, and you can see that it's much loved by the community. Applications are due by May 1st of each year. It will be up probably sometime in January or February after the capital bill is passed and we know what the allocations will be for next year. And last but not least is the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which also funds all sorts of outdoor recreation projects, land acquisition and improvement of parks. It was passed by Congress in 1964. And as you may or may not know, it expired at the end of September in 2015. So it is officially not renewed at this time, but there have been several bills introduced in Congress in both the Senate and the House that are pending, and I guess there's a lot of discussion going on as to how the money will be split between the federal side and the state side. So what I'm going to show you today is basically how things have been over the last 50 years, and we don't know if there will be changes or not, but we'll assume there won't be any major changes. This program is not funded through tax dollars. It's funded through revenue that comes from Outer Continental Shelf mineral leasing receipts, which is kind of a nice thing. And since 1965, Ohio has received about $147 million in land and water money. And traditionally, Ohio has, like many other states do, split that money. Half of it goes to Department of Natural Resources projects to improve parklands and state forests, recreational state forests, or purchase new lands, and the other half goes to a local grant program. So we have about, including the state projects, we've got about 1,400 land and water projects right now in the state of Ohio since the early 70s, basically, or late 60s. Once again, acquisition, development, rehabilitation, and engineering design are all eligible. This project sponsor, which must be a political subdivision, local political subdivision, must own the property. Leasing is not acceptable unless you're leasing your land from the Army Corps of Engineers or some other federal agency. That's another situation. It's a 50-50 program, or it has been to date, so 50% match is required, and donated land and labor costs are allowed, and you can also match NatureWorks with the Land and Water program, which works out well on the land and water side. We will award up to $150,000, but we won't award any less than $10,000 anymore because there's considerable paperwork with every project since it is a federal grant. We have about 1.5 to 2 years to get your project done, and any time you invest land and water money
in a park, you have a perpetuity requirement, which is under Section 6F of the Land and Water Act, which means that your park will be protected from development or non-recreational use forever in perpetuity. If you put $1,000 into a bench and you have a 500-acre park, your 500-acre park will be protected under 6F. You can do what's called a 6F conversion, but you want to avoid that if at all possible, where you would take the land that you needed for, say, your fire station or something else and replace it with other land. It's a cumbersome process. We do a number of 6F conversions, but it's better to know going in and not plan on doing that. This is some of the language for 6F, so you can read that at your leisure. I put pictures in there to make it more palatable. And I just wanted to show you some of the projects that we're working on right now. This is a land and water grant that we're using the money within ODNR. There's a lot of drainage problems on the Little Miami Scenic Trail in southwestern Ohio. So we have, I think, about a $380,000 grant, which is half of the cost of this project, to repair the drainage and repave this trail, which was sorely needed for many years. These are some local projects. Mercer County did a acquisition of 5 acres to expand a park. Another acquisition project, 9 acres, City of Twinsburg is expanding a park that they have. Down in Pike County, there's a really nice little sports park down there, and the Land and Water Fund is paying for a new playground. And a spray park in a new park in Pickaway County, which is the community is really enjoying. And then the shelter house in Van Wert County, Village of Wilshire, is another typical land and water project that we funded. And that's all I have. This is my contact information. If you want more detail or you have any questions, feel free to call me or email me. Or do you have any questions right now?
Yes, I have 2 questions.
Okay.
Are golf carts considered motorized vehicles for the
Golf carts?
are on the the RTP?
Well, I'm not sure. I've never been asked that question. I know that segways technically are, so I would assume that golf carts are too. But
I asked that. I'm from Geneva on the Lake, so
okay.
There's a lot of individuals that drive golf carts all around the community.
Why don't you email me that question? That might be a question that we would want to get cleared through our federal highway contact before we say for sure. But I know I learned years ago in a meeting that they did consider segways, those things you ride around, as technically motorized vehicles. So I would think golf carts might fall into that category as well. Good question.
Second question is on the Nature Works.
Yes.
Is a municipal golf course covered under parks?
Yes. That's outdoor recreation, yes. Thank you.
Marion, the CORF program, does the property acquisition have to follow ODOT's process for property acquisition for right-of-way, basically for trails?
I'm not with ODOT, so I'm not sure if it does or not. We have to follow certain requirements. You're talking about Clean Ohio Trail Fund? Yeah. There are certain forms that have to be filled out by the seller, and we have to make sure that the appraisals are done according to protocol with the seller being there. Once again, I would encourage you to email Dwan with that particular question. So probably not quite as stringent as ODOT, but we do have quite a few requirements that go along with it. We always have an appraisal requirement, and we always require that the appraisals be reviewed by ODNR and approved. And USPAP appraisals are usually what we require, with the exception of the Land and Water Conservation Fund, where a Yellow Book appraisal is required. So there are forms and appraisals involved.
Mary, in the event that a public entity has a property they're developing into a park, if you're going to include like restrooms and facilities like that, would this program also pay for an on-site wastewater treatment facility?
If that wastewater treatment facility is solely for the purpose of infrastructure on the park, for the restroom, what have you, yes, that would be an eligible cost. More questions? Well, you may think of more, so feel free to call me or email me. We're always glad to answer questions, and we hope to see some applications from you all. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mary. We're actually ahead of schedule, which is great, and we have only 2 more presentations to go. So I think what we'll do now is a short 3-minute stand-up and stretch break. So I know it's hard to sit still for too long. Feel free to talk amongst yourselves, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Or up and down, and if you need it, there is a Lisa's pointer.
Oh, I won't.
Okay, so we'll keep it easy.
Great. You tell me when you want to get them started. I'm okay with that.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started again here in a moment. Your office is going from office to division. Is it division? Congratulations.
Why are we in office? Oh my God, I know that's what we call you. We want to be a division. Like, we have divisions like division. Like, there's only 7 of us. Like, we don't care.
I noticed that on the website.
Majority rules.
Yeah. All right, well, welcome back. Our next speaker is Glenda Bumgarner, who is the Deputy Director for ODOT's Division of Jobs and Commerce.
Good afternoon, everyone. Long day to sit in your seats, but I hear the agenda's been moving quickly, and I'm not going to break the pattern that's been established so far. It's difficult to sit all day, I know. I have a hard time with that as well, but great turnout, and thank you for coming to ODOT to hear about some of the programs that we have for you. Just a brief overview before I break into the presentation of our jobs. We have Office of Jobs and Commerce, and it's just a small group. There's only, I think, 7 of us total, and that includes our 2 interns. And we have statewide coverage, so most of the managers that work in the department cover about 15 or 16 counties, so they have a large area to cover. And a couple months ago, they said, we want to change our name to Division of Jobs and Commerce from Office of Jobs and Commerce. And I went, well, we're not very large, we're not really a division in my mind, but you know what? I'm going with it. They wanted it, and so we are about 4 or 5 years old inside of the world of ODOT, which makes us and kind of still the new kid on the block. And so the purpose that we were created to link economic development activities across the state with local communities and sometimes engineering partners, and to really be the bridge and the dialogue between the two. One of the observations that I've had working in economic development for a long time now in the state of Ohio is that I was challenged to translate the needs that I had as an economic development practitioner with the community infrastructure, and how did I secure those grants and funds and loans in many cases. Because now what we know about site consultants, and by the way, Ohio has been doing phenomenally well in our new business development. We are literally 3rd in the nation in a report published last week about our foreign investment levels and about our new job creation. And you know, our jobs, many of us, I'm sure many of you are in the consulting community and working in hand with us in the public sector, but if the jobs are not there, then the revenue is not there that helps keep all of this moving, whether it's at the local level, the state level, or even at the federal level. We see dips and bumps in revenue projections, and I think one of the things that we try to do is help communities understand how to level that revenue so that income projection equals out, or they're able to achieve their goals. So some of the things I'm going to talk about today, I'm really not going to give you here's a program, here's the click on, here's what you do to get the money. We really don't approach our conversations that way, but I will share with you the program dollars and how we work with you. We do about 70 to 75 projects a year in my office. And when I say we complete those projects, that's where we probably, right now we have over 100 projects in our pipeline that are waiting to move, or we're getting more information, or helping communities come up with their strategies or secure their funding. One of the things that we like to do is we pride ourselves on really understanding the 53 different transportation funding sources available to you. And many times, I think as you're doing your day job, sometimes it can be a little overwhelming to understand what do you qualify for, what do you not qualify for. If I don't have any motor fuel tax dollars left, how can I continue to upgrade and make sure my businesses and my economic development epicenters, those would be your industrial parks, or where you have the highest concentration of some of your jobs. How do you keep those needs met, and how do you partner with across jurisdictions? We're really, really good at working with county commissioners. I was in Licking County yesterday. We met with the county commissioners, the county engineer, two city mayors, and a couple of township trustee folks, and we really talked about not just one project, but we talked about the needs that they have for 4 or 5 rather large projects, and what's the strategy that we can deploy to make sure all the partners are in the fold together, but to make sure that we've got a strategy that addresses those needs. So that's really what our office does in a nutshell. But I'm going to go through the companies. The qualifiers are for the individual projects. The companies need to have what I would call Tier 1 jobs. And that really excludes those jobs where individuals still need to stand in line for public service assistance. So typically, we're looking to help companies and communities when they're creating livable wage jobs. Not that the other jobs aren't important, because we need them certainly as a community, but one of the things that we really help you understand is that a Tier 1 job will create 3, 4, 5, 6 spinoff jobs. And so if you're chasing a retail position or a retail opportunity, which is great, sales tax are wonderful, and we want those retail opportunities in our communities, but what we would say to you is if that's the only thing that you have in your community, we would begin by recommending you do a diversification of your revenue funds for your portfolio in your community. So this is just an example of a couple of companies that we've helped. Daifuku is a company here in Columbus that's on the eastern side, but it has really had phenomenal growth. It's a Honda supplier. They make amazing, they've done very, very well. But their growth, it's important for us to remember that 80% of all new jobs created come from our existing companies. So while we're looking at the attraction component, it's really important to understand and preserve the businesses that we have in our communities, which most of you already know that. So what I wanted to talk with you about today is our mission, our structure. I've touched on that a little bit. Talk about the partnership overview. Collaboratively, we really are better together. Some trends and high-level observations that I can share with you, and then give you a couple of case studies to kind of show you how some of this works, and a couple of takeaway points, and then a Q&A if time permits. And I know you didn't have your afternoon break, but you had your stand-up and stretch, so if you still need to stand up, it's fine. So we align transportation investments and strategies with the needs of Ohio's businesses and workers. And really, it's very simplistic. We look at all of the funding sources for transportation, or if we think you qualify for some economic development opportunities with other programs and other agencies, we help connect you. We do data analysis and site intelligence. We help you really understand, as your community is working on its infrastructure, what's the impact on your existing infrastructure as it pertains to your buildings, your sites. How are you compared to your neighbor or your strengths? If there's an attraction or a site that comes to Ohio, a lead, how are you positioned to compete for that business? So we do some of that, and we connect you to the right people that can help you understand some of the components. We're a liaison with Jobs Ohio. Development Services Agency and the Regional and Local Economic Development Partners, Regional Growth Partnership, Columbus 2020, Team NEO, and the business community. And we serve as the technical and funding experts. So one of the things that happens is we will have a company come in and look for services, or consider Ohio. And the question is, the community say, well, how do we compete for that? Well, site consultants, the game has completely changed from the site consultants of 5 years ago even, when you had a website. They would come to your website, look at what you have, and maybe make a phone call and come see you. That game has completely changed with Google and their resources and the GIS technologies. Many times, site consultants will know more about your community than many of us do before they even decide if they're going to come call on you. So it's really important to understand how to make those investments and where to make them so that you don't get left out of the mix. And many times you don't even know you've been left out of the conversation. So that's one of the things that we try to do, is help the public partners in the economic development arena understand the value of what you are bringing to the table in your community. Also, you know, ODOT is a very large agency with deep and broad technical expertise. So if you're a community and you are purchasing roadwork infrastructure, one of the things we like to do is we like to bring it in-house and share it with our engineers. We look at the scope of the project. We look at the cost estimate. We really do look at it and make sure that we're comfortable before we make a recommendation for public funding, that you know what you're buying and that you're comfortable with that as well. I'm not a transportation engineer, so I really depend on that guidance from our central office and district engineering teams. We support Ohio's economy through increased revenue opportunities. When our companies are growing and they're thriving, then it has a cascading effect, both on local governments and state governments. We provide, like I said, services for construction reviews, design reviews, and we are very, very good at being the third-party entity that can come into a complex situation. I've worked at the local government arena, and sometimes over a period of time, we develop relationships that can challenge us. And, you know, we all experience that, whether it's private or public sector. And one of the things that we like to do is we like to come in and help partners understand that collaboratively, when we can work together, we can make a lot of things happen. But we also have to understand that's a respectful dialogue, and everybody has something generally that they'd like to see to get done. So we just try to frame some of those conversations in a respectful and polite and usually very non-public way. There are 6 managers, and if you haven't received our Jobs and Commerce brochure, it's on the back. It's also, I think we're also in the local programs guide for Andrea's group, but if not, it's on the back table with some contact information. I apologize to you, I'm just saying this. We've already said this first bullet. But we basically will do some translation for you of internal and external dialogues. And we advocate for you. I mean, we will, if there's a roadwork project and we think your project should qualify for roadwork 629 grant funds administered through Jobs Ohio and the Department of Development, the regional managers will be a great advocate for you. And we really help others understand why they need to be in this project. And I think that is extremely valuable because sometimes early in the year, the funding that's allocated is less, and then towards the latter part of the year, if there's money left over, the grants get bigger, and if there's not a lot of money left, the grants get smaller. And so we really try to be ahead of that conversation and representing your needs as well. Most of our projects have about 4 partners in the funding mix. Again, we coordinate conversations and we verify and validate that you know exactly what your goal is for a project. A couple of trends that we've seen in the economic development community. We have been recognized more and more this year and last year as a state doing business. Amazon is having a phenomenal footprint already in Ohio. They decided to put their multi-billion-dollar data center in New Albany recently, and with that has already come 2 dominoes, and we think a third is very close. The first domino effect was in Licking County, where they're going to have about 2,000 jobs. And then in Obetz, Ohio, which is south of Columbus, southern part of Columbus, and that's another 1,500 jobs. And Amazon has shared with us, we've come to Ohio not only because of the logistics center where you're located, but we're coming to Ohio because you have workforce. And here's one of the things I would like to share with you that gets a little delicate, but competition is the best way to raise wages for the citizens whom we're helping go to work. So when you have a company like Amazon that comes into Ohio, one of the things that they will be looking to do is attract their new workers. They've made an assessment. They think the wages being offered in some of the areas of Ohio, that they can compete with what they're going to offer. So what you see is even the existing companies who want to keep their existing talent, you'll see a rise in tide of the wages. So that's a great thing when we're firing on all cylinders here. Again, I shared with you 80% of all of the jobs come from your existing companies. So we need to make sure they're healthy and whole, that their trucks are moving in and out, their employees can get in and out, and that they're happy. A lot of the programs in the economic development arena, which is a little disappointing to me, but I know we're looking more deeply at this. Many of the programs have been, if you create new jobs at this wage, then you qualify for the program. And what I would like to say to you is if you have an economic epicenter or you have a company and they're thriving, even if they're holding well and they're not adding new employees because of technology gains, many employers are not hiring as many individuals as they used to. They're using technology to get to those efficiencies, but their sales revenues are going up. We look at a multitude of things to determine the health of a company, and if they're struggling, we'll help you connect to the resources. So, the United States is a little unique in how we fund transportation compared to many of the other countries that are growing very rapidly. China, for the first time, will surpass and has surpassed the United States in the number of manufacturing jobs. China is serious competition for the United States. Their infrastructure is funded completely different than our tax dollars that fund ours and our motor fuel tax. And what I will say to you is there's been a lot of reshoring efforts back to the United States from Mexico and from some of the Americas. But China is, we really need to just be mindful that some of our companies, the United States still has the highest corporate tax of any country in the world. And what that means is when companies are looking to locate in the United States, those companies must have incentives in order to determine a location in the United States. Many times the United States is being left behind because they're not facing that corporate tax level in other countries. So sometimes that's why your communities and the state and anybody that's been involved with site selectors, I will tell you, it's a hard negotiation. And many times if our communities are not very versed in what their assets bring, sometimes they don't always end up at the end of the day with what is good for them long term. So one of the things we try to do is if your infrastructures are already in place or you're able to meet the needs of some of your businesses and retain them, then you can stay out of that dialogue altogether. So the number one rule that we have is first learn to keep what you have. So with that in mind, I just want to, now this is a large corporate headquarters, Marathons, this is their world headquarters in Findlay, Ohio. And they're an existing company, but they said, we're trying to compete for world talent in the way of our engineers and some of our talent. And the people that we're trying to attract, they want a nice work-life quality. They want to be able to walk to the downtown areas and sit at a cafe and have their dinner. And the downtown's a disaster, and it was all one-way streets. And many of you now, I know, are changing the designs of your downtowns to create more of a village and an atmosphere of two-way streets where people want to park and walk. And but more importantly than that is, they had some real challenges with some flooding. So on its surface, the economic development practitioner didn't think that this project would be a great project, and it was never brought forward. And once we understood what was happening here, we said, this is a great project. This company is continuing to grow. They are doing remarkably well. And if, by the way, you think a dozen other states and site consultants haven't called on this company in the last 6 months, then you're being maybe a little naive to what the market is, because I can tell you what Ohio's doing. We're making lots of phone calls, and we participate in those discussions to attract business to Ohio and help our citizens go to work. So we looked at, we led this charge. We actually worked with Jobs Ohio to secure 629 and job creation tax credit for them. At ODOT, we began with a very small application to get some design money for them, the TAP through Andrea's shop, and then we ended up eventually they got a safety grant, and we put a Jobs and Commerce grant in it. The city of Findlay was able to, again, that was that strategic leadership that we gave to them and said, here's how you can get this done. And Marathon and then the Port Authority was a great financing mechanism for them. $80 million in private investment, 1,600 existing jobs, 250 new jobs, $15 million annual payroll. But, the companies oftentimes are not willing to share their new job creation with you. And sometimes the reason for that's multifold. One, if they have an existing workforce, and as you know, if they're getting ready to reduce their head count, they really don't want their existing employees to know, because sometimes the best and the brightest are the ones that leave before the announcement's even made. Also, they don't want their customers to know, because that makes them appear less stable. So one of the things that we did here with Marathon was we were able to get to the new job creation in a way that was very non-threatening to them, but also encouraged them to participate. And then another project to showcase is Viking Forge, and Christina Wagner is the regional jobs and commerce on this. And Christina, she's here today. She's in Northeast Ohio. Why don't you stand up, Christina, and say hi? She covers Northeast Ohio, Cleveland, Akron, down to through District 11 and Shell territory. So she does a lot of windshield time, but she is covers an immense amount of territory. So with this one, similar situation. You can see the funding sources that we used. It was a $12 million capital investment the company was ready to make. We really didn't know the new job creation right out of the gate, but we knew they were going to do a vibrant retention. So one of the things on the takeaway points, so with my office, here's how some of this would work for you. If you're interested and you think, gosh, I've got a challenge in my downtown area, we really look at the epicenter, but we also look within a 1, 2, and 3 mile range of the area that you're telling us about, because we look at the jobs that are already there. We look at the traffic flows. We look at sort of a bigger picture than one project at a time. And many times, if you want to get 3 or 4 or 5, 6 different projects done with different criteria, one of the things that we can do is we can guide you on how to have a strategic conversation with maybe your commissioners and your mayors and bring that partnership in together, so that you are at a place where you're not at square one, but you're kind of looking at it through a larger lens. We have, one of the things that we do in each of our projects is for every $1 that we make an investment in, generally speaking, our projects are attracting $8 of other money. And that's important for you to know, because it does take a village, and sometimes it takes a quilt to deliver on large projects or a multitude of projects. So that's one of the things we'd really like you to know. We have an open application period, and it's not really an application so much as a manager comes in and talks with you about your project, and then we decide together if it's something that makes sense. And by the way, we will connect you to the right resources inside of ODOT with the programs. Andrea Stevenson's local program and her team, they're phenomenal in helping you internally at ODOT. We kind of help you understand what the external terrain looks like as well. We will be able to tell you what the tax rate is and what's the threshold for a permissive license tax, and how much money between 6 or 7 or 10 funding sources your community might be able to leverage. And that changes the conversation completely, so that you're not out there by yourself. And sometimes, it's hard to be a prophet in your own house, but when other people come in and help you, sometimes the conversation becomes a little more palatable. So I will take questions. I know that Mike is up here, so I'm assuming my time is about over, Mike. Is that right? Okay, great. If there's any questions, I know you've had a long, long day. If there are no questions, then you can email me, or you have the brochure. You can reach out to the regional managers. But sure love having you at ODOT here today. And thank you for your time and your attention. And they might need another stretch break, Mike. They're doing great. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenda. And we are winding down. Just a friendly reminder, the very last page in your course book is the workshop evaluation form. So why don't you go ahead and tear that out from the book right now, if you would. And anytime by the end of the session, just fill that out for us, and you can leave it on any of the tables, and we appreciate that. Our final speaker for today is Victoria Beal, who is our Ohio LTAP Director.
I hear lots of pages tearing, so I'll give you a second to get that done. I want to thank everyone, first off, before I launch into my presentation, for attending today. This is the third time we've done Show Me the Money. It's been 2 years since the last time we decided to make it an every other year program, and I sincerely feel, after having looked at the materials as they were coming in and having watched a number of the presentations today, that you've been through the very best Show Me the Money that we've offered to date. It's been a good mix of not only examples from peers who've used the funding, but excellent information on the programs that are available out there. So without further ado, I'm going to talk to you about the Township Sign Safety Grant Program, which is a program that was started at ODOT approximately 4 years ago, and we're very pleased in the LTAP Center to be able to administer this program for the townships. What the program does, I'm going to go over that with you, and then I'm also going to go over what is really the biggest bulk of the responsibility for the township, and then answer any questions. With the grant program, it will provide up to $50,000 in materials, meaning signs, posts, hardware, for eligible townships. And what I mean by an eligible township is that we work with the crash data section here at ODOT, just looking at townships and figure out what is the ranking for townships across the board? Who has the most crashes happening in their township? Looking at the severity of the crash, and they're all ranked. And then from there, we take off anyone at the top of the list who has already been funded and figure out who are the top 100 who haven't yet been funded, who have a crash problem. And then we invite them to apply for the grant. Now, that crash data for this next funding cycle, which is going to open in January, is based off of 2010 to 2014 crash data. The townships who are eligible to apply will be contacted by the LTAP Center, and I've learned through this process that we will also contact the county engineers to make them aware that their townships are eligible to apply. The materials under this grant are covered at 100%. There is actually no money out of pocket for the township, and I'll explain to you how that works in a minute. The one thing the township has to do, though, is they have to commit their own labor to installing the signs. I had one guy call me up. He said, boy, I was so excited to get this sign grant and get all these materials till they showed up. And now I realized how much work we really have to get done putting them all in. But he said it felt like Christmas time to him. So there is no funding available for installation. Please don't call me after you get it all and ask for funding for installation. It's not there. What we mean by no money out of pocket for the townships, ODOT will work with the township, get their needs as far as the materials. We actually place the orders for the townships, have them delivered to the townships, and then we provide the township then the invoice to match to the packing slip and the materials that were delivered, and ask them to certify it back to us for payment. And then we pay it. So it's not a reimbursement grant. The township doesn't have to have any money up front, to pay someone and then wait for a check to come from ODOT. ODOT actually will pay the vendors on behalf of the township. And yes, I will give your fiscal officers a document that explains how to put that on the books. You don't have to worry about that either. So the federal authorization date, it doesn't start the date that you get notified that the grant has been awarded. It actually is later than that date, because I have to work with you to get an agreement signed between the township and ODOT, and I have to run it up the flagpole for all the approvals, and I take care of clearing the environmental part or in the right-of-way part, and then I submit it for federal authorization. At that point, which is like right before I cut your purchase orders, is when we get that date. So you have a year from that date to get everything installed. So you've got about a month or so till your materials are delivered after the federal authorization date. It leaves you about 11 months to install them. Now, yeah, if we have a bad winter you can ask for an extension. You know, if you had turnover in your staff, you can ask for an extension for an extra year. That's all right. Your township, you know, may, if it has a village within the boundaries or, you know, touching the boundaries of the township, maybe it crosses over into 2 townships, but you can work with that village and include their sign order with yours. The average on these grants, even though $50,000 is available, when I take everybody who we've funded since the beginning of this program and average it out, it's about $21,000 that gets asked for on average. And we want to make sure that the villages who really are still a part of that, if you're having a crash problem, they're probably having it too, because there's a lot of things that goes into the crash problem, including, you know, the number of people who are traveling your roads, a lot of the geometrics of the roads. So if you want to include the village, you'll be responsible for them and making sure that they install the signs properly, but you can include their order with yours and turn it all in as one package. Determining your sign order. Now, I had someone call me up with the application and say, you know, this application seemed way too easy because, you know, all I had to do was determine my sign order. But when I really started digging into it, I figured out there was a little bit more to it than that. So I'm going to go over with you some steps as far as how they determine the sign order, or how you would if you were a township determine a sign order if you're invited to apply. We're not going to get into the nitty-gritty, though, of what the Ohio Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices requires of you. Every local jurisdiction is entitled to that book, and it's about yay thick, 1 copy for free. I asked Mike, and he put it right before your evaluation form. There's an order form in your book. If you don't have that, OMUTCD, the order form's in there, order one for your jurisdiction, so that way you have it. Every jurisdiction who maintains signs on a roadway should have that in Ohio. So if you're going to build your sign order for the township sign grant, the first thing you want to do is look at your crash maps, and we will give these to you. How did your crash map come about? Every law enforcement officer in Ohio, when they respond to a crash, has to fill out what's called the OH1. That's Ohio's crash reporting form. It's a standard form. Every agency uses it, and that feeds all the information into our crash maps. Our crash maps have the crashes listed by severity type. If it was a fatal, if it was a serious injury, you know, all the way down to property damage only. They're coded on there. And what we tell our townships is, you know, while it's what we call a systematic, meaning across the board, you can cover every township road in your township with this grant. What we want you to do is to start with the more severe crashes. So if you have some red dots where there have been fatalities, that's where you first need to worry about your sign order. And then you can move down to the next level of severity, you know, serious injury, visible injury, all the way down, property damage only, and then from there, you know, blanketing the rest of the remaining township roads up to that $50,000 limit. So there's a method to this. We do have all the maps available for every township, right down to the township level on the map room. They're out there. You just look by county and then look for your township. There are county-wide maps for the counties as well. And then we work with the townships to make sure they understand that there's a package that you can use, a package process. You know, we tell them what the eligible signs are, and we are willing to add extra signs on. Our sign engineer, Jim Roth, is very good about that. It has to be a safety sign, though. It can't be a green street name sign. That's not considered a safety sign. But if it's a sign that's an advance warning, say for an intersection that has the name of the street you're coming up to, that would qualify under this grant. Again, the OMUTCD, I can't say that enough. That is the book that governs this. We go over proper installation, because that is the one thing we will circle back around and do quality assurance checks on after the grant's closed out. We'll come out and visit with randomly selected townships to make sure the signs really were installed properly. And we want to make sure that all of the safety signs have been installed properly out there on the township system. So we give you all of that information. We go over the proper supports for the signs, and then we get into our packages. And there's a package thought process as to how you can go about signing, say, your curves and your intersections. You know, if you're going to sign the horizontal curves, we like to see the chevrons and then the advanced warning signs for the curves. And we do like to see, you know, if it's a more severe crash, you go with the larger size signs. And the townships are always like, do I really have to have a 36 by 36 sign? Well, the thing is they've done national studies that proves the larger signs, people really do pay more attention to them, and there are less crashes the bigger the sign size. So yes, 36 by 36 on some of them. And we go over all of the various advanced warning signs. You know, even you see all the different diagrams on here. If you have a configuration on a roadway that's different than what's there, you can draw it. I've got one grant application right now that I sent along 8 pages of different road configurations to the sign vendor, and we'll have it specially made for you. So whatever your road configuration is, because a lot of the township roads, let's face it, guys, they were buggy trails. They were buggy trails that went back and forth between the farms, and they were never originally built for motorized vehicles. So we've got to really tell the driver, this is what you're coming up to, so they can be aware of, you know, what it is and how to properly deal with it. On our level 1 and 2 packages, we do like to see an advisory speed plaque. And Ray, who was here earlier running the microphone around, actually has put together a little tech transfer toolbox I'm going to tell you about in a minute that explains how to figure out what that speed limit's supposed to be on the bottom of the advisory sign. And it takes you through how to do the ball banking process. So again, the advisory speed sign, the one large direction arrow, chevrons, and then there is an additional sign that we offer as a part of the grant, but one thing I do like to mention about this sign is this is an add-on sign. You can't replace the turn with the advisory speed below with this sign. You can add this one on closer to the curve, but you can't have it be in place of the other one. And I've had a lot of townships that I have to back them up when they send their order in and say, now do you have those other signs already? Because you have to realize you can't use this one in place of it. I know it seems like it's a good idea because it's probably cheaper to get one instead of 2, but that's just the way the requirements are. If you want this one, we need to make sure you have the other 2 that go ahead of it. And you'll notice on a lot of the signs as well that, you know, we, especially level 2, we like to see you even double it up on both sides of the road. And then, you know, oversized signs we talked about, and on the posts of the signs, you know, we definitely want the post reflectors out there as a part of the package. These post reflectors that run down the sign post, they cost less than $4 per reflector. So they're an easy part of this application to order. We also have an intersection sign package that explains what we like to see placed in the various types of intersections, and we provide all that to the townships so they can use it to build their package, or excuse me, their sign order. Like I said, we're not going to get into the weeds on every single sign, but it's in your packet if you have an interest in this and you know that you're possibly going to get invited to apply. I had one township call me and say, how far down the list are we? And we estimated how soon they were going to get invited, and they went ahead and started working on putting their details together because they had a very small staff, and they said it's going to take us a while to build this information to submit it for the grant. Determining your curve advisory speeds. This is the tech transfer toolbox I talked about. If you get invited to apply and you need to determine what that advisory speed is going to be, we actually have on our website video tutorials that explain how to do this process. And if you're not comfortable with that, we'll send Ray out. Ken Schunkweiler over here will tell you. Ray's good to work with, isn't he?
Ray's great.
Yeah. Ray went out with Ken in Muskingum County a few weeks ago and actually took Ken through the process of the ball bank indicator, how to use it, you know, how to properly set up your vehicle, how to keep going through the curve at the different speeds until you take the measurements down that the little ball bank indicator is going to give you, and then how to fill out the form to figure out what that little yellow placard needs to say, and then how to fill out the sign order form, which then you can just add all those together to make your sign order out of it. So we want to make this process as easy as possible for the townships. We're here to help you through every step of the way. You know, you go through and you make that determination, and I'll tell you the reason why you really need to do it is even if you feel that, it's going to take too much time, it has been a lot of years since a lot of those roads have had somebody do a ball bank study on them. And your vehicles are much different now than they were even 10 years ago. 10 years ago, a vehicle might have been able to take a curve, at one speed, but now with the developments and the technology, it can go much faster. So it's important to do that ball banking as a part of the order. And the technology transfer toolbox is out there for you. So, questions? Yes?
Can the townships be notified that there are local development districts and RTPOs that would be willing to help out with this order?
Sure. The question was, can the townships be notified that there are RTPOs and local development districts that are willing to help them with this application process? Absolutely. I can definitely do that. I even have some county engineer offices that they've pretty much given me a standing order that any of our townships that are going to get invited to apply, the signs just need to be delivered here because we're going to install it for the townships. And they help the township put the order together. So there's a couple of counties that do that out there. What other questions do we have? I know you all want to get out of here. Well, if you think of anything once you're down the road and hopefully not stuck in traffic, please feel free to email me. We are so appreciative that you were here today. Do not forget to fill out your evaluation in the back of the book. And last but not least, your certificates are on the back tables alphabetically. So make sure you pick those up. Even those who just signed in today, we've got them back there for you. Thank you again for attending Show Me the Money.